Oh, and a tip behind him. That's going to be a spin from Goodell. Maybe no, he catches it. How in the world did he catch that?
I have no idea, and I'm not sure Ryan Goodell did either, but he comes back onto the track. A little bit of a check up there around him. That was incredible.
And taking advantage of that, Clayton Ham. Let's take another look at this replay. The 14, all sorts of sideways, and it starts to look like the car wants to go again. That's why he went on the apron. I thought maybe he just was slow and was trying to get out of the way, but he had to save it twice. We are indeed Brunschweiler to the inside of the pair of them. That might not necessarily be the best line unless he can get it woed up in time. He's the bravest on the brakes, and he is going to get it. Wow, the 4 moves up to 5th in a 2-1 move. Side by side between Burns and Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt has the inside, but not a nose ahead at first under braking. It starts to go back ahead. They're going to go wheel to wheel through here, giving each other space. Now it's a drag race, DJ, on who gets to the line first.
And it's going to be a shorter line there for David Burns, but it's not giving any room by Johan Vanderbilt. They're going to dive down into the corner. Little bit of bumping and banging, but who's it going to be? I think it's Burns by 22 thousandths of a second.
Meanwhile, up towards the front for TCRs, this has now swapped. Waring has swapped with Hardman. That took place last time by down the front stretch. Now looking to swap back. Look at this. Ascend to the inside. Hardman runs along the curb in the hairpin and just about completes the pass and does. Battle for second now up as Wager tries to send his way in for Britannia Ice Sports.
Wow, this is a three-way battle for that first position. All these guys are fighting for the lead. This is
three wide.
Really nice 3 wide going into Cunningham around to Collier. I can't tell who's going to make it out of this in front of this whole pack, but it looks like it's going to still be Hardman. Andrew Hardman doing a beautiful job to hold on to the lead there.
He's been slowly working his way up through the field. I wouldn't have expected it there. Brown maybe thinking about a 2-for-1.
Wow, great heads up by Johnson, who sees him coming and gives him space, and great braking by Travis Brown. I didn't think there was any way that he managed to get side by side.
Nor did I, but he runs wide there, and that's going to open up the door back for Jeffrey Shulam.
Wheel to wheel, fighting for the 9th position, and it looks like Shulam might have it. Travis Brown cutting back underneath. He's going to fight back on Jeffrey, who's had his hands full for just about the last 5 laps in its entirety, and unfortunately, once again, he is snookered around the outside of Sayat.
When people think about Phoenix Raceway today, the first style of racing that comes to mind is usually stock cars. However, this facility and this region have always had deep ties to open-wheel racing. Jimmy Bryan was born in Phoenix back in 1926. The Arizona native went on to win multiple championships, as well as become a winner of the 1958 edition of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. However, his life was cut short after a crash at Lanehorse Speedway back in 1960. That same day, 2 drivers were killed during the Belgian Grand Prix. Some consider June 19, 1960, to be one of the deadliest days in racing history. The track named one of its championship races for many years in Jimmy Bryan's honor, and today, the Major Series honors him as well. This is the Jimmy Bryan 200, live on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hello everyone and welcome to Race 4 of the European region's Pro Split season from iRacing's legacy version of Phoenix Raceway. My name's Justin Prince. Alongside the booth today is Derek Watson along with Christian Challoner. Behind the scenes is our director Zach Johnson, and he's using cameras provided by the great Dougie Beard. Now, today brings us to a track that has changed time and time again during its recent history, Phoenix Raceway. Let's learn more about its racing history and the legacy version of this track with our GSRC track guide.
Today, we're going back in time to Phoenix International Raceway as it stood in 2008. Before the big renovation in 2010, this front straightaway was even tighter than it is today. In 2008, it was a whole 10 feet narrower, so those track blocking incidents are even more of a possibility here. Turns 1 and 2 are an even 11 degrees from top to bottom. It still is tight though, but you don't have to worry about setting up for the dogleg on exit. Here, it's more of just a kink in the backstretch and nothing but grass and curves underneath. That, by the way, you don't want to hit. Going into 3 and 4, the track is back at its original 9 degrees. That wall on the exit of 4, though, still comes up in a hurry, so some things just never change. Overall, though, Phoenix has less grip and the track surface is bumpy. That desert sun taking its toll on it. While Phoenix opened in the mid-60s, it was more of a sports car and open-wheel facility. This facility saw it all with IndyCar, from the USAC days to the IRL kart split to modern-day IndyCar. They tore around this oval at blistering speeds. The Copper World Classic, featuring USAC midgets and silver ground cars, was one of Phoenix's marquee events. Stock cars didn't even show up until the late 70s, with NASCAR's West Series making multiple stops and modifieds having a few special events. Beginning in the 90s, the slide shifted NASCAR's ways. Nowadays, all of the NASCAR's major series come here. Today, we'll take that trip down memory lane and see who ends up in victory lane at the classic Phoenix International Raceway.
That was a look at our GSRC track guide for Phoenix. Now, Christian, I'll start with you, as today is expected to be an intriguing race. We'll be utilizing the Lotus 79s for this classic IndyCar style race. What should fans expect to see when it comes to said racing today from Avondale, Arizona?
Well, I think the big things that you got to watch out for on this track is that turns 1 and 2, that's kind of the danger end of the track. You've got a pretty good tendency to get tight near the exit of 2 and end up near the fence. Obviously in the pack, that's going to cause a big checkup, so you got to watch out for that. But it is also a chance to make some passes, so that's really where I'm expecting we're going to see some passes. Very, very difficult to make them on the entry into turn 1, because you're just making that line so much tighter. 3 and 4 end of the track, it's honestly pretty trivial. Unless your setup's too loose, it's very, very easily flat out. But with the aero push, you can get a little bit of an advantage by just offsetting to the car ahead of you.
It's going to be very intriguing how the drivers fare out today at a track that can be pretty hard to pass out with this machinery. But let's take a look at the point standings, because one driver has been difficult to pass in the standings after 3 rounds. The pros side, Jamie Conway has a 32-point advantage for Apex Tech Racing and its pro squad over Sean Campbell entering today. Thomas Cope rounds out the top 30, 59 points back after his victory at Daytona a couple weeks ago, while Dallas Pataska is looking for a bit of luck. He had a dominating round, yes, in Australia a while back, but now, 66 points back entering today, he looks to close the gap, with Chris Barrett rounding out the top 5. When it comes to the sportsman side of the card for European region action, Brian Boomstra is having some big booms on the racetrack in terms of victories. 3 out of a potential 5 total victories on the trot. Clearly, the multi-class racing has him at the top of the standings over Garen Batten. Then Alexander Olsen, Edward Shelley, and Kareem Mirin round out the top 5 entering today's action. This year, only 4 drivers have entered races as part of the Legends category. Only 1 has been full-time so far. That's David H. Baker. That means David H. Baker for Grizzly TFR Le Mans has a 187-point advantage over Mark Redford. Mario Schroer and Thomas Geisler have also made starts throughout the season so far to round out the Legends side. In Legends Sport, there have been multiple drivers, though, who've ran on that side of the card, as Hakan Sharon is at the top of the standings, and he has a top 5 and a 19-point advantage over the veteran Enyan Brony. Then Miguel Hagstrom, also a Majors veteran. He's currently in 3rd, 28 points back, followed by Gary Thomas and Andy Banfield, rounding out the top 5. Now, Derek, I want to bring you in as we take a look towards the team standings. Some very strong performances from some very popular groupings when it comes to Majors history, as well as especially the newcomers in Apex Tech.
Yeah, definitely some strong performances here. You see a 131-point gap lead here between Apex Tech and Satellite. That indicates some really strong performances. And then 3rd place even further back, that's Grizzly TFR Le Mans, 441 back. And you see Grizzly TFR Daytona at 576. And in 5th place, Team Mad, 977. The interesting thing about team points, though, we're so early in the season, while it looks like a runaway right now, pardon me, we'll see what happens in a few months. This could all be quite different for these teams.
You look over to the sports side as well, Derek. Energy Racing ES, they've had a strong campaign, but it's worth noting Bright Esports, who were the leaders last round, dropped back to 49 points back as a unit.
Yeah, you know, they did drop back to 49 points, but the beautiful thing about this race is at the end of this, they could be back in the lead. That 49-point gap is not that big. You'll see HW Racing at 253 back, followed by Hanson Brothers Racing at 518, and then Grizzly TFR Spa at 558.
That's a look top to bottom at the standings entry today. Christian, let's take a look at the race details. We mentioned we're running with the Lotus 79s. That means some unique rules for this respective event, but also the potential of strategy to consider for the 200-lap, 200-mile race today.
Yeah, a lot of strategy considerations here because fuel sensitivity in this car is just so high. So I think we're going to see a lot of drivers try and short fuel it as much as they can, you know, kind of bank on when a caution's going to come out. But passing is so difficult. It's going to be a real challenge to you know, pick that out. 200-lap race, though, so quite a long time. I think we're going to see a lot of drivers pit with anywhere between 60 and 80 laps to go, and that will probably be their last stop. Tires isn't so much of a big thing in this car. It's 5 sets, which is definitely more than enough for this race. I don't think we're going to see too many concerns with drivers running out of tires. 26 incident limit. You know, it is short track racing, but it is a car that really does not take well to damage. So I don't expect we're going to see anybody run up against that. But if they do, they've got 1 spare car today.
It's going to be very intriguing how this all plays out tonight. As let's take a look at the track conditions, where in Arizona today, it's fairly cool, surprisingly. It is March 18, 2022 in sim today, but it's 102 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 39 degrees Celsius track temperature. 72 is the air temp, Fahrenheit 22 degrees Celsius. Clear blue skies, as we expected here in the desert. It's going to be intriguing how that all plays out in terms of the tempers, as well as how the battles fare out. But I'd like to take the time as we continue to watch the final warm-up session before today's action to remind you of the charity being supported by today's event, Tomorrow Fund, an independent nonprofit charitable organization which provides daily financial and emotional support to children with cancer and their families treated at Hasbro Children's Hospital in Providence, Rhode Island. About 2 hours ago, the organization began its 19th edition of the Stroll and Roll at the Garden City Center in Cranston, Rhode Island. To learn more and to learn about the many ways you can donate, go to tomorrowfund.org. Drivers continue to make their way around for practice, and Scott Brazier is at the top of the board currently. The Simsy Esports driver has about a near 10th of a second advantage over Dallas Bataska. Ryan Walker, Mark Redford, Sean Campbell, top 5 in practice. And Derek, It's going to be intriguing how things play out. Second oval race of the campaign. A bit of a shorter distance compared to Daytona, of course. But very pivotal if you want to compete for the championship this round will be today.
You know, it is very pivotal. And one thing you said that I completely agree with is how this race is going to play out. This is a car where you're going to have to be aware of it every lap. It's going to change. This is not going to be a race where lap 1 on the start, the car feels the same it does on lap 20, 25. We're going to see an instance where these cars are going to get looser and harder to handle for these drivers as these runs go on. So if we get some long runs, you could definitely see a shakeup in, like I say, the top 5 from where it starts to where it ends. This would be a pivotal race as far as race management and watching how these gentlemen and ladies can really manage what they're doing and be aware every lap. You cannot fall asleep's not the right word. You cannot daydream. You can't take a breath. You have to be on alert every lap here.
And Christian, quickly turn to you on that mark too, and keep in mind, this car has seen some adjustments over time, especially when it comes to the tires. And this was something a lot of people, when it came to the Wicked Brands Fake 500, really enjoyed. Having a lot of tire wear with the Lotus 79s, because prior to some of the updates about a few months ago, the strategy in the pit lane was usually never take tires, because if you took tires, it would make you worse long run. Now, not so much.
Yeah, and I think the big thing that everybody's going to be struggling with today is cars that, you know, have a good balance but don't get too loose over a long run. That seems to really be the limiting factor. You want to be able to go wide open through 1 and 2 because it's just so much more pace if you can do that. The problem is that you get to a point where you just start to slide the rear of the car around, and obviously if you don't kind of get ahead of that and counter it before it just continues to build, it'll just keep getting worse and worse and worse until you just eventually snap spin off a turn 2. So I definitely think after about, say, 10, anywhere between 10 and 20 laps into a run, that's when we're going to see who's got the best long run cars and if we've got anybody out there who's going to be really, really struggling.
Drivers getting ready to make their way to the starting grid. We will take the time to remind you that the Majors Series is sponsored by the Majors Garage, home of free baseline plus setups. Get help from any of the garage coaches 24/7. Sign up now for awesome, affordable monthly subscriptions, telemetry, coaching, and more at majorsgarage.com. Or use our special discount code MajorsGSRC for 10% off. We have a link in the description below that directly applies to that special offer. Let's take a look at what the drivers have to offer today. 21 drivers on the grid today. It's Chris Barrett, who set the pole time during the week. He'll start alongside a teammate in Theo Charlet. Then it's Jan Durix, who will start in 3rd position. 1, 2, 3 for Apex Tech, with Ross Banfield starting in 4th. Adam Fasciponte starts in 5th today, with David H. Baker in 6th. Travis Henderson and Devin Molinarewicz round out the top 8. Joshua Wolf, Trevor Borowski, the top 10 overall, Derek.
That's right. And we're going to go back to row number 6 in P11. That's going to be Gabriel Roos, followed by Tom Dreeling in P12. Dallas Pataska will come off P13, followed side by side with Mark Redford. Then Miguel Freitas in 15th, Sean Campbell 16th, and then rounding out your top 20 is Elvis Bonello, Cordell Colon, Thomas Cope, and Ryan Walker.
The last of the drivers today just so happened to be the quickest driver in practice, Scott Brazier. He'll be starting shotgun today. 21 cars, 11 total rows. Just about all set to go. 200 laps up on the board for today. Keys to victory quickly, Christian.
Long run performance and strategy. I think you've got to survive this first run. This is going to be probably the most difficult run of the race, just trying to feel out what the car's like in a pack. And if you can survive that, you're probably in a good position to, you know, run the last 180 laps. I suspect we're going to see an early caution here.
iRacing pace car ready to drop off here from the desert. This is the Jimmy Bryan 200 from iRacing's virtual Phoenix Raceway. Green flag is out. We're underway from Arizona.
Take a look at this, Justin. Look at how fast they're all getting single file. Everybody wants to be in line. No one wants to be side by side. And it's happening quickly here as we're finishing lap number 1.
This is to be expected with the clean air. Chris Barrett pulling away by nearly 4/10 already to start. Teammates, in fact, the top 2 breaking away quickly. The 45 of Durk's currently holding on to the first major grouping of cars. In fact, he's under attack quickly. To the outside, Ross Banfield makes the pass work. That's a little surprising, Christian, to see the top line work that quickly in 3.
Yeah, I'm really surprised he was able to make that look as easy as he did. I was totally expecting cars to kind of, hold on the top line, but not make a full pass in 3 and 4, just because you really don't need to be lifting through there on most of the setups that I've personally driven. So, yeah, a little bit of a surprise to see a full actual pass, but, that's promising for the race if you can actually make passes on the top in 3 and 4.
Some of the drivers fighting hard still. It's the battle amongst the blue cars, trying to pass anyone who's not in a blue car. Dallas Pataska, though, in his red and blue car, trying to get the power down the inside, up 3 positions already, Derek. Looking consistent early, he's one of the fastest cars on track as he moves up a spot.
He really is looking consistent fairly early, and what he's doing right now is getting some clean air in front of that car. Something I'm sure we'll talk about throughout this broadcast, both you guys, Christian and JP, is just how much this car will change in clean air versus behind somebody. Right now he's, trailing, as you said, another blue car, as you put it, and which is, it's going to get interesting how different this car is going to feel as he gets closer.
A lot of the drivers running for Grizzly TFR for today's action. It's estimated nearly half the field has at least some semblance of blue in their car today. Is that a good omen is the question.
Well, you certainly can't fault their commitment to the series, if you've got half the field is your cars. And, it is good to see that the TFR team as a whole is just, they've been in the major series for such a long time. And there was a little bit towards the start of the season where, I felt like they were a bit overshadowed by the Apex Tech team because they came in and they were so strong, especially at Daytona, which had kind of been a bit of a TFR stronghold for the past couple of years. So it's good to see that hasn't kind of, shaken their resolve, and they've got a lot of cars in the race today.
Meanwhile, Dallas Pataska continues to pass by those blue and silver machines like they're standing still. Last time by, he was a couple 100s quicker than the race leader. In fact, Dallas Pataska's best time is 2/10 quicker than the race leader so far.
Yeah, Justin, this is going to be a product, a little bit of the draft. We don't talk about it a whole lot at Phoenix because it's not a super speedway. But if you look at the clean air the leader has, it would make sense that Pataska's going to pull this a little. And there's another fastest lap, a 23.038, as you called out. He's got another one here. That draft is helping him a lot.
As some may say, he's wanting to go places. He wanted to go to the bottom to the inside of Adam Fasciaponte. He'll instead have to wait until the entry to turn 1. Now this is the battle for 5th position. My goodness, Dallas Pataska is on rails.
Now, something I want to make a mental note and a verbal note here, though, is this going to be a case which Christian talked about during the pre-race? Could this be a short-run car? And he's doing an amazing job, and there's no discredit to him for that. I'm curious in another, let's say, 10 laps, 15 laps, how he still feels about this car, or did he set it up anticipating a bunch of short runs?
That's going to be the interesting mark, and we know over the past, Christian, Dallas Pataska's specialty is ovals. He was, for many years, a prospect to make a run towards the NASCAR competition, and he's still very strong every time the oval series action comes to play, especially in the major series.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, for a long time, he was kind of focused on the Road to Pro side in oval. It didn't work out for him. I mean, not for a lack of speed or anything like that. It was just I was actually on the box for him for at least one full season of that, and it just never worked out. It was actually kind of really frustrating. We had so many runs where he was looking really, really good, and to be honest, it looked like it should just be easy to pick up points, and something would happen, and it kind of just all went away from him. But recently he's been kind of focusing on the road side of stuff. He's been running with satellite racing in a lot of the special events, series such like SCO and whatnot with GT3 cars, and he's been having a good time, and he's kind of made a good transition, I would say, into the road cars. But when it comes to the car that he's driving right now, I might know a thing or two about it, because it might also be our setup for tonight.
So the big question I think one person may have is this a low fuel strategy, Christian?
If he didn't fill it up, then I know that he's only got about 90 laps of fuel in the car. So it's possible, yeah. We were kind of thinking that about halfway through the race is where you want to make that stop, and you want to kind of keep a pretty consistent balance the whole time if you can, because we don't expect anybody's going to try and run the entire race without really stopping, unless there's quite a significant number of cautions. The thing that I'm really kind of curious about, though, is that if he starts to get loose kind of right around now, because that's where I was struggling with this car a little bit.
So guys, I want to sorry, JP. I'm sorry. I want to say here real quick. We've been talking a lot about Dallas Pataska, and he has a lot of talent. But a call out as well to Sean Campbell. He went from 16th to 5th. You can see him here in this camera view. He's right here behind this orange car. He's making a big run as well. So it's kind of interesting to see how a couple guys here have made big runs early in this race.
You're right on that, Derek. And it's not just because he's harnessing the power once more of Nicolas Cage with that infamous helmet, but he's also one of the top drivers as we've seen this season. Very strong, has a very strong technical core to work with as well for this series. Already now up to 3rd. And the caution is out for the first time as it's Cornell Cologne in trouble down the front. Significant damage, and we're under yellow for the first time at Phoenix.
That's unfortunate for Cologne to see. We'll wait for the replay and see what happens here. I mean, that's, in these cars, it's hard to think he'll have much of a race left with how much damage they take and how easily they take it. Let's watch the replay here.
See on the GSRC replay machine battling towards the middle of the pack, and wow.
He got some help there.
Looked like Christian, the driver beneath, got a little bit tight there. I believe that was Scott Brazier.
Yeah, a little bit surprised to actually see if that was Scott underneath them. It looks like it is. And yeah, it looks like he just grabbed the yellow line and that washed him up the track. Really unfortunate for Cadal, obviously, because he wasn't doing anything other than running his own line, and then he just got completely wiped out. Good news is he does have the spare car available. Bad news is you don't want to be taking that 19 laps into the race.
And that's not good either. He is out of the car. He went on the tow truck, and apparently the car has decided to go and spin in the box.
That's pointed the wrong way.
Christian?
I've got no answers for you, JP. I didn't see how the car got in the box. Obviously, it's not looking ideal, though.
Once again, he did tow to the box. The bad news is the car didn't want to be in the box and wants to escape from said box. Tom Dreiling, Miguel Freitas, Scott Brazier all coming down for service. This caution, everybody else staying out. So we're under yellow for the first time. Now it's the big test. Can Barrett defend? He had pulled away by about a second and a half before the caution, Derek.
Yeah, he really did. And I was going to bring up in a second, this is going to be a different restart. So that first start of the race was a double foul restart. Everyone hereafter, not that way, I believe. So it's going to be a different and in some ways easier for him to defend on these restarts, I would think.
Just so happens that we have two on-board cameras today for their perspectives in terms of how they're reacting to the respective sim setups. Chris Barrett is amongst those, and we also have Theo Chalet, who have those cameras for today. Here's the first of the two. You see a bit of the frown and straight lip face, now having to prepare for the restart. You also have Theo Chalet. Position looking strong so far. He did try and fight a bit with Dallas Pataska before losing second.
What I found interesting about that camera view is some guys, including myself, when a yellow comes out, you kind of take a second, you breathe, you kind of become jovial, and you can lose your focus that way if you're not careful. But if you look at that camera view there of Chris Barrett, I mean, we're under caution and he still looks like he's just focused in. He knows what his goal is here.
Getting ready for the restart. Lights are out. Single file restarts. Lap traffic does mix in, keep in mind, when it comes to this formation. Take a look and a ride with him. 179 laps to go. Green flag is out. Back underway from Phoenix. Dallas Pataska.
Look at that. Sorry, but Justin, go ahead.
Was about to say Dallas Pataska couldn't keep up, Derek, with the aero wash.
No, he really couldn't. I was going to say almost the same thing as you looking behind Barrett there. You talked about could he defend, and it was just really easy to do in that first start. Now, Pataska, I guess we can kind of answer that fuel question you had earlier, because if he thought there was any fuel concerns, I mean, you don't want to give up track position, but that was your first chance under yellow to fix that. And Everett is going to get past here possibly for second place.
To the inside, that's Sean Campbell. Trying to make the move work along the yellow line. Yes, indeed, he does. Pataska tries to fight back, lifts off the gas, though, to avoid the wall. And they now clear fully for second. Now it's the question, can anybody try and take advantage and use a bit of the draft to get up to Barrett? The tough thing about aero wash, though, as we've seen in the past, Christian, if you get yourself within an aero wash, it's very easy to get very tight.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's really kind of what we saw a little bit with Pataska there, with through 1 and 2. That's where it'll get you. But the other thing to keep in mind with aero push and everything, especially if you're not the leader, is if you're in a situation like, say, Sean Campbell or Dallas Pataska now, Campbell's looking for a move on the lead here, but the balance may change very unexpectedly loose once you get the lead. So we'll have to see if Campbell kind of made a really aggressive move there, but it looks like it's going to work for him.
To the inside for the race lead. The 26 of Campbell tries to clear for the first lead change of the day. Just about does. Chris Barrett tries to power back. Here comes Pataska. Pataska elects to wait behind. Campbell tries to still clear into turn 3. Up the track, Barrett. To the lead goes Campbell.
Now, what's exciting for drivers in maybe 4th, 5th, 6th position even is this side-by-side racing. If I was back there in P5, I'd be stoked right now, because as these guys mainly see, Campbell has made the pass here, so is Pataska now. As these drivers are going to race side-by-side, it's only going to slow them down a little bit, and it's going to bunch this field up even more compared to where they were.
Pataska up to second. Right now, this grouping stretching back to as far back as 6th position. Ponti, the last of those cars, trying to find a way back around Ross Banfield. Banfield trying to find a way around the 7 machine once again. Again, side by side. This is now for the 3rd position, make it 4th. 3 cars covered under a blanket near contact.
So, Christian, can you walk us through real quick? Can you walk us through? Oh, there's a
caution. Well, one driver is going to walk the way to the pit lane. It's Travis Henderson, who is upside down. Mark Redford is also involved in this one. And we're under yellow for the 2nd time today. Instead of walking us through the perspective of the fight, let's walk through the incident here, Christian, as both cars, significant damage, both cars to the tow truck.
Yeah, it looked like we actually had some TFR on TFR contact here. Yeah, just getting together and really nasty wreck coming off of 4 right there. Both cars completely destroyed, and I'm honestly not exactly sure what was kind of causing the coming together though. There was a little bit of a check up, but everything was really okay at that point. I'm wondering if, yeah, it was kind of like what we saw earlier, where it just washes up off the bottom. But I think it was more a case that everybody was just so out of sorts. You know, it's not really how you would normally drive the car off the corner like that, with a lot of lifting and coasting through that second part. So more just a kind of an unfortunate coming together, but obviously a spectacular wreck.
Wow, what a scary moment for Gabriel Ruse, by the way. He was that red car right behind him. That has to be, when that happens.
Very close to getting some damage indeed. In fact, he did pick up right front wing damage. Let's take a look and listen in to Gabriel Ruse.
You see, he grabs the yellow line and kind of drives underneath the wreck, so to speak. The good news is that if he has just picked up front wing damage, he'll be able to fix that without taking a fast repair.
We'll see if he elects to do so. It looks like he is taking a manual damage repair. Tom Dowling also coming on in. Miguel Freitas once again topping off this caution flag. Ryan Walker also coming in during this period. Want to give a shout out, by the way, to the 999 machine. And we talk about a lot of drivers taking the spirit of certain events. Miguel Freitas definitely doing that in the Team Mad machine, going full 1970s Lotus here. See if we can closen up a little bit, as he has a bit of a mix of the Lotus Green. You also have the mixture of some of the various sponsors they had over that time period.
I love when iRacing, when drivers and painters get creative and do stuff like this. It's kind of cool to see tradition honored, and it's always a lot of creativity that goes into this stuff. It's there in every aspect of racing. There's some of it, but it's always cool to see. So I'm going to ask this again. It's like I kind of meant to, and we got interrupted by the caution. Christian, as we're seeing Chris Barrett fall back to third now and getting passed by Campbell and Pataska, we're now 32 laps into this race. What could he be feeling in this car under green that's allowing these guys to get by him so easily?
Well, the big thing is that the draft down the straights, it does mean that if you're the leader, you're not so much a sitting duck just because of how hard it is to complete the pass, but it does mean that it's very, very difficult to actually make a breakaway, especially on a restart when everybody's bunched back up. His initial restart was quite good. It just seemed like after that, especially Campbell, because Pataska dropped back a little bit, got passed by Campbell, but Campbell was able to just drive up to the back of him and was able to get the pass done actually much easier than I expected he would be able to. But immediately in the aftermath of that, you kind of saw with Barrett that he was suddenly in a situation he hadn't been in the race before, where he was behind cars and he was getting tight. And you saw it a little bit with his teammate Schleray earlier in the race as well, where especially coming through 1 and 2, he got really, really tight, and it let a couple of cars stack up and make a pass on him. Banfield was one of them. So I think the Apex Tech car looks like it's really, really good out on its own, and it may be a little bit less good when it's in the pack. And he's going to have to kind of figure out what he can do to just maybe offset lines a little bit to counter that. I still think that he's definitely got the pace to fight with Campbell and Pataska. I mean, at the moment, I would say that it looks like it's a race between Campbell, Pataska, and Barrett, maybe Banfield as well.
Getting ready for the restart here. 167 laps to go in the Jimmy Bryan 200. Sean Campbell in the lead. Pataska, Barrett, Banfield, Chalet. Green flag back out. Racing once more from the desert. And some checkups in the back of the pack notice there. Other than that, nice and clean. Campbell looks to set sail.
Yeah, he definitely is looking to set sail, and so far they're in file here, but you see Pataska's going to close that gap here through 3 and 4. Now I'm curious to see how Barrett and Pataska do in the draft here.
Chalet, though, you see in the backdrop, nearly clapped the wall coming off of turn 4. The arrow wash, that was a close call for the number 7, Christian.
Yeah, and then that's kind of what I was... Oh, as we've got another caution.
And it's in the second group, and another big one. More blue cars involved. And we're back under yellow. Thomas Cope, who also had a big checkup on the restart, ends up getting some of the worst of it there. Hearing that it was Cordell Colon who had managed to escape from the pit box, only to now get involved in this caution. So the 50s day is likely done.
It's so early, man. We're only lap 36, and so sad. Oh, such a hard hit to see that his day is done. That's really sad. I feel bad for him.
He reported, Christian, he did clip the wall, or rather the apron, and then he got clipped by a couple cars.
Yeah, and that's definitely going to be the end of his day. I suppose the good thing for us is that we felt like we had a surplus of blue cars, and yeah, well, we're getting through them pretty quick.
We still have a surplus of blue cars. It's just that one's now in the box. Wow. Someone got absolutely pinballed into the wall there. That's Elvis Bonello.
It's something we haven't actually touched on yet is obviously the restarts are a little bit different here. They're single file, but there's also no lucky dog. So it sounds obvious, but you really don't want to get flipped upside down because you'll certainly lose a lap with towing back to the pits. And it's going to be pretty much impossible to get that back.
Absolutely. Don't be surprised if we get a long run, I think, based on some of the trends seen, especially if you watch, say, Lionheart competition with the Torrential series. It gets pretty aggressive at tracks like this, where if you lose that chance to stay on the lead lap, it basically takes you out of contention for the race win in general. Derek.
Yeah, I mean, it really will. I guess I want to say for those who don't know what a lucky dog is, so I think we're kind of assuming. So within NASCAR, if you are the first car a lap down when a yellow comes out, NASCAR implemented a rule, almost 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. But yeah, it's basically the first car a lap down will get a free pass when the yellow comes out. And it can really help save a race. We've seen it in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola races and our own races with an iRacing. It can be a lifesaver sometimes. You almost bank on it and you kind of get frustrated when the yellow doesn't happen. But for these guys, it's going to be a lot harder. Yeah, as you said, Justin, they're going to need a long run where everyone, Campbell, Barrett, Cologne, Pataska, Baker, they all want to pit. And you have to then take that risk of staying out and basically hoping for a quick yellow so you can then get your tires and fuel. Because if that run stays long, for very long, you'll just get swallowed up again.
Absolutely, and keep in mind, the racing back to the caution ended around 2003 as well after that incident. New Hampshire down the front stretch with how close it got after one of the incidents involving Dale Jarrett. Of course, IndyCar never adopted said lucky dog rules, or hasn't yet currently, in its current system. It's worth noting as well, Scott Brazier is the first of the drivers who have taken service so far tonight, Christian. Remember, the 555 was lightning quick in Australia, then proceeded to, in the first hard braking zone, send his car into the tires.
Yeah, I think he was probably hoping that we'd forgotten about that one, but obviously a driver that's very, very quick. He hasn't made as much progress through the field as I was expecting. I mean, he is up quite a number of spots, but he's not broken up into the top 10 yet. Obviously, taking that service has been some of that, but I'm expecting towards the end of the race we're going to see a bit more from him. I'm thinking he's probably running a bit heavier on fuel versus the drivers at the front of the field right now.
Especially with some of the pace showcased, we'll see how things fare out. 12th on back is where everyone has taken service at least once so far. Up at the very front, though, Sean Campbell, Dallas Pataska, Chris Barrett, Ross Banfield, Theo Chalet, Fauci Aponte rounding up the top 6. Campbell stacking the box this time. Green flag is out, and it's another crash. More blue cars get collected. 4, 5, 6 drivers slam on in. And that was coming.
That's unfortunate for Scott Brazier. We just talked about how he just got service on that car, and now he's sitting there in the wall in that black and orange car you see there. So, that's just unfortunate. That's the danger of taking service here. You put yourself back in the field of any race, not just this race, but any NASCAR, IndyCar, whatever. And this is where you could end up, sadly.
One checkup in the stack-up situation like that on a restart, and disaster can strike. Stack up happens about 5th on back, right there. And then if anyone can't get in the brakes in time, boom. Around goes the pack. And into the cars in front goes the pack.
You know, Christian, this is the danger of single file restarts as you watch this here. When the accordion effect happens in a restart, it's impossible to avoid sometimes.
Yeah, it really is, and you know, it kind of looked like it just started a little bit with Schleret getting away kind of slowly, but everybody behind, I mean, the cars immediately behind this, there really is nothing you can do. I know it kind of always looks a little bit silly when we have wrecks on a restart, but it's really not as easy as you think it is. And you see there, everybody, it's one of those things where the guy ahead of you gets on the brakes a little bit, so you get on the brakes a little bit harder, and then the guy behind you gets on his brakes a little bit harder again, and eventually somebody just runs out of braking power, and that's when you get the big accordion stack up. So really unfortunate for more of our TFR cars, obviously just kind of going through them at a bit of a rate right now, but something with Scott Brazier that came up there with the taking service and dropping back into the pack, I think that's what we're probably not going to see from kind of the drivers at the front. I think they're going to run almost out to that 100 lap mark if they can, pretty much no matter what. And then they're going to try and bring everybody down with them so that they don't lose their track position. Because if they go off strategy and they end up having to come through the pack, well, you saw what can happen.
Yeah, and I just want to talk about real quick, maybe for those who don't know, what you're first going to think when you see this wreck, oh, why doesn't he just pull to the inside? Why does he just pull to the inside and avoid that wreck? But the problem is, in this style of racing rules, if you do that, you're going to eat a black flag for passing before the start. You cannot pass on the left side till you get to the start-finish line. So if you pull the left and you avoid the wreck, it'd be less of a penalty, but there's still a penalty, and that can be very demoralizing.
It can be, absolutely. But as a result of that incident, 9th on back have now had to take service, and many drivers are still driving with damage currently. Joshua Wolf got through that, ended up getting some significant front wing damage from that incident. Gabriel Ruse still has that right side wing damage. A couple others did take the fast repairs. Scott Brazier did not take a fast repair. In fact, his front wing is significantly damaged. David H. Baker's got a black flag to serve. Durix is still trying to get his car serviced and towed. Ryan Walker is currently dealing with a meatball flag and a tow as well. So the entire field has been flipped a bit upside down around the mid-pack as the lights are already out on top of the iRacing pace car here.
Yeah, it's a good term for it, Justin. Upside down. I mean, the people who, started up front are not, not necessarily there anymore.
So once again, Campbell still in control of the field, Christian, and we've seen what can happen if we stack the box, right? One driver misjudges it, around goes everybody else.
Yeah, and I think we're now going to see much more cautious restart, especially from drivers in the midfield. But talking a little bit about the field being flipped upside down, in some cases that has literally happened.
Absolutely has, with so many drivers going upside down today. Campbell already looking a bit different on his gas marks, going to the restart zone. iRacing pace car off, approaching a quarter way through today's action for the Jimmy Bryan 200. This time he goes a little bit early. Green flag is out, back on her way. No stack up behind. Nice and quick on the restart for Campbell. Already up by half a second with how good he handled 1 and 2. One driver in a bit of trouble towards the back grouping. Ryan Walker, bit slow coming through what is now the dog leg, had come out of the pit lane and checked up a few drivers battling for 13th on back.
Yeah, I'm watching one of the races in the back as well. Gabriel Ruse was at first car in 9th place. I guess he wasn't first. He was in 9th place, but he was the first car who had service on this restart, but he's having a hard time here. So as you said, some of these guys still driving around with damage, and it may not be long before the leaders find these guys, and it becomes a much more treacherous race for our leaders than what they've had so far.
And Gabriel Ruse is not playing nice either, it looks like. I want to turn to you, Christian, on this. How bad is it when you're racing with damage like this to try and hold on to positions like this, because they are fighting like cats and dogs behind him now?
Yeah, it looks pretty rough. I don't think he was expecting the damage to be this bad. And to be honest, neither was I. It looked like he only picked up a little bit of front wing damage, but it just looks like he's now very, very tight. And unfortunately, there's not really much you can do on the car. You do have those ARBs, but with sort of the oval-style setups that everybody's running here, they're not used in the same way as they are on the road courses. Directionally, they work the same, but they're also much more critical in terms of...
Battle for the race lead. Dallas Pataska is going for the point. Sorry to cut you off, but Sean Campbell, he's about to get leapfrogged and cut about by Dallas Pataska. Pataska in the 23 on the outside. Campbell still on the inside. Side by side for the point. And bit of a loose moment for Pataska. He nearly hits the wall. He still gets the run for the race lead. More trouble behind him. Mark Redford just got into contact with Gabriel Ruse in that fight for about 9th on back. No caution. We stay green.
Yeah, we do stay green. They're still side by side for the lead. And here comes Barrett now going to try to make his run here and see where he can line up. As you see now, he is to the inside of Pataska.
That's Banfield as well in there to the inside for second. This 777 tries to make it stick. No, he doesn't. Pataska able to hold on to P2, and that's the moments we were talking about. If he was going to get loose, was that going to be the sign of how this car can handle? It took a little bit longer than you expected, Christian, but it's hitting.
Yeah, definitely, and it looked like he was going to get the pass completed, but I just don't think he was running Campbell as tight as he could have been through 3 and 4. I mean, it is still early in the race, so maybe that's a factor in it, but I think that was what was hurting his ability to then get the run down the front stretch and complete the pass.
A little more calmer now amongst the top 3. For now was the key word. Banfield trying to set things up. Fascia Ponte behind them is trying to leapfrog his way past the pole sitter in Barrett. He tries to help a teammate as well. To the inside, Fasciaponti trying to still clear. Nearly does for 4th position.
Yeah, there he goes. He's now made that pass and cleared it, putting him up to P4. As Barrett here is having a hard time. I mean, still doing a good job holding on to P5. We say a hard time because he was a dominant race leader through the first, through the first yellow. But I'm sure he'd like to get back up there and is trying to figure out what he can do to get there.
Everyone lining each other up right now, trying to sort themselves out. As we get one of our longer runs of the race so far, just past a quarter distance through so far. Will anyone take a peek quite yet? Not quite yet, as Campbell continues to hold on. And now this is where the traffic management is going to be a big factor. Remember those incidents we referred to? Thomas Cope, he's at risk of being lapped. Durix is at risk of being lapped. Brazier at risk of being lapped. They're right in front of the race leaders. In fact, they're almost in front of the leader itself now. Also, some of the cars you see there, they're going to have to try and find a way to pass the lap cars while going side by side as Banfield's backing out of it and struggling.
A little bit of a surprise there on Banfield, where he was looking really, really strong, but now he's dropped back a little bit and actually dropping away from the lead pair.
Still able to hold on to 4th position, though. Took a moment for him to settle down. Top 3 now sorting each other out. Fasciaponti, give him credit. One of his best runs of the season so far, but I've noticed this. He's taken a major step forward this year when it comes to his performances too, Christian.
Yeah, he's looking really mighty right now, and you know, we've seen already in this run kind of cars come and go, and right now it looks like Fasciaponti's really, really moving.
Currently one of the quick cars on the racetrack. The pace still in the 23.1s for the race leaders. About a 1/10 of a second to fall for a vast majority of the pack. See if Fasciaponti can find his way to the point. He was a contender at Daytona, looks drawn to some of the road courses this season so far, and looks to battle against the champion from last campaign. He tries it outside. Will that work with a bit of the banking? Not quite yet.
No, not quite yet. We'll talk for a second, Justin, about the mentality of getting by lap traffic. Now, they've gotten by that first pack that you pointed out, but as FC Pataska the lead here, sorry. When you're going through lap traffic, it's a much different feeling as a driver. You're a little bit more nervous because those guys, with all respect, are back there for a reason. Either damage, they have a bad setup, they've had a bad race, they're just a little off pace, and you can't. You have to put yourself in a mindset of thinking they're not going to make the best moves, they're not on the best line. I'm going to come close up on them faster than I do these guys. I'm racing for the lead. It's a really nervous moment as a driver to start, especially when you hit a pack of lapped cars like that.
It can be, and I've seen in the past as well, especially in Retro Series competition for Lionheart in the past with this car at this track. Usually you reach the traffic, it gets very hairy from there. More traffic ahead. Fasciaponti's up to second. Pataska let him go last time by. Can Fasciaponti find a way to get by Sean Campbell? No, in fact, Campbell quicker down the straightaway as they reach some more of that traffic and check up a bit.
Yeah, I messed up. I said Pataska lead. That was not right. That's a lap car they're passing that looks just like Pataska, and I mixed the car up there.
That was Ryan Walker, indeed one of the satellite racing machines. Also, Walker, on-time sim racing commentator. Fasciaponti looking to try and fashion his way to the top of the pylon for the race lead. Yes, he does. Here comes Campbell, though, with a switchback to the inside of the crossover. Campbell back to the point for RSR Esports.
Definitely looks like Fasciaponti's car is easier to drive. He's going back down to the bottom in one. It'd be interesting to see if he can make the stick on the very, very bottom of the track. And he does.
The Evolve driver trying to continue this back and forth. The swap drafting continuing. Back and forth. Fasciaponti apologized on the radio with how close he thought he got with the last switch. Campbell still completes it for the lead. More traffic up the road as Fasciaponti tries high side instead this time. Looking on board, this is from Dallas Pataska. 2x2 approaching some of the traffic now. How will they fare with the traffic choosing the bottom of the racetrack? Someone's going to have to make a choice here. Fasciaponti staying up top. Lap car going to the very top. Fasciaponte goes 3 wide, but the traffic makes it work. Dallas Pataska stays on behind. That was Elvis Bonello they lap. Still side by side as they reach Gabriel Ruse now. And this time Ruse doesn't move. Fasciaponte forced to hit the brakes. Fasciaponte makes contact. They're in the air. Ruse upside down. Caution is out once again.
Oh, there's the lap traffic we talked about, Justin.
And Ruse hits him for a second time for good measure. Fasciaponte battling for the race lead. Gets checked up by the traffic, Christian. What in the world?
Yeah, it looked like he was kind of forced to go 3 wide with both Gabriel Ruse and Dallas Pataska there on the exit of 4. And the 2 cars up by the fence, Fasciaponte and Ruse, just got together and couldn't get apart. And, you know, it's just really unfortunate for Fasciaponte. He looks so strong. It looked like he had just a ton more downforce and grip, to be honest, than everybody else. The problem was that it was making it very difficult for him to complete that pass for lead. And you see here, he was kind of having a bit of a wiggle himself in the middle, but I gotta feel like Gabriel Ruse should have maybe backed out of that in 3 and kind of let that battle keep going.
Yeah, that is.
He definitely should have backed out. But when I talk about Rogan, I'm going to make this point one more time and I'll let it go. What happens here, in a sense, though, is these guys in the lead, they don't know what Gabriel. I mean, we talked about 10 laps ago about how Gabriel Ruse was really tight and having a hard time with that car with that wing damage. They didn't know. And if you look at the closing rate on them, oh, that was so fast. I just don't think they had a chance to be prepared for that. And unfortunately, I mean, yeah, Ruse should have backed out and just let it go. But that's where they're closing. They're like, I got him. He's going to hold a line. He's going to do the normal racing thing. And he probably couldn't with that damage. So that's what causes incidents like that with this lap traffic.
That's a great point to consider too, Derek. Absolutely. Especially when you also factor in the fact that Ruse already had contact this run with drivers trying to pass him in a racing for a position at the time. So he's already was rattled before that.
Yeah, see, he's already on edge. He's already on tilt, depending upon the term you want to use for, you know, if you're in racing or poker or whatever you want to say. He's already, this, you know, seeing red is another one we use sometimes as drivers. And then he, you know, I want to hold on the spot. I don't want to get lapped again, or I don't want to get lapped. And unfortunately, that's when poor decisions are made by drivers.
We'll take a quick break. When we come back, more coverage of the Major Series in its European Region Pro Split. You're watching the Jimmy Bryan 200 from iRacing's virtual Legacy Edition of Phoenix Raceway. We'll be right back.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics, engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12 Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iRacing.com.
Back live and back going here from Phoenix Raceway, where Chris Barrett and Theo Chalet have made an intriguing call, Christian. Both drivers are the only drivers yet to pit in this race. Scott Brazier is coming in as a result of some of the trouble early on, but the top two are on a different strategy than everybody else. They are leading by 2 seconds over some of the others trying to cut through some of the traffic.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point about kind of having that lead, and that came about because of the restart rules and lap cars not having to drop to the tail end. Pataska had to pass a couple of cars. Obviously, Sean Campbell, another driver who was fighting for the lead, he's still about 5 seconds behind. But this kind of leads into a bit of a strategy decision by the Apex Tech guys that they weren't that fast at the very beginning of the race, and they lost the lead with Barrett fairly early on, and Schleray looked like he was struggling a little bit with Tight coming off at 2 at the same time. And I did think that maybe they were just running a little bit heavier, and this kind of makes it look like that was the case. The bad thing is, if they do have to pit again, which I'm pretty sure they will have to, then they're going to drop to the tail end of the field.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting, especially if they don't get the caution they're looking for. Keep in mind that traffic you're mentioning is Monirwich, who is in 10th position in the 69. However, as mentioned, no Lucky Dogs in this competition. Keep in mind, though, that was Pataska. It just so happens to be in the draft of that lap car you're referring to, and he just so happened to set an air purple lap, and just so happens to also be closing in fast. He was more than 2 seconds back. When I pitched that question, he's now, well, before the fact Monerwich went for the crossback there, within 1.8 seconds. So Pataska is coming after taking his fuel stop. Only 7.9 seconds of it, though.
Yeah, I mean, he is coming. Now he's got that big open air, so there's no aero wash to worry about. He can go full throttle here and try to run these guys down. As you guys said in that restart when we were side by side, I think it was a 33 and the 69, and I think the 277 were the 3 cars between Pataska and the top 2. So allowed them to get away. And but I think it won't be long before Pataska's back up here. New tires, gas, confidence. You feel better after a pit stop. Oh my gosh, as a driver, and Justin, you've done enough racing, especially across the iRacing service, to know that pit stop can be such a confidence booster for you.
It can be, absolutely, especially if you hit your marks right to get in the entry, but also just that feeling going from worn tires to fresh tires can be so critical. Keep in mind as well, I want to mention this too towards your way, Mr. Challenger, because Sean Campbell elected to go for a 19-second pit stop compared to the 7.9 that Pataska had, so much more fuel on hand for the 26 car.
Yeah, I wonder if that's fuel and tires, or if that's kind of just a lot of fuel. I mean, obviously, a very, very long pit stop there for him. Well, the other thing is, he may have picked up a tiny bit of damage that we didn't see, and that could have been part of that. But at the same time, he's losing time to the leaders right now. Yeah, he was 5 seconds behind. He's now 7.5 seconds behind. So
yeah,
I think his car's very, very heavy right now. I think he's probably fueled to go to the end here.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, based on that speed. He is also in the aero wash of Brodsky, just passing by the damaged car at Joshua Wolf as well. And that can also be a major factor since these drivers are running up to half a second slower than the race leader's pace. And the big difference, remember, Campbell, when he was cutting through the field early on, he was able to have Pataska that open up the doors. Now, he's got to open up the doors himself compared to the fact that Pataska and company are much higher up on the pylon and around the racetrack, nearly half a circuit further, Derek.
Yeah, definitely almost half a circuit forward, pardon me, as you said. I was going to ask Christian real quick, though. Obviously these cars were former F1 cars, but a lot of people see them when we think of Indy car racing, how we talk about the Lionheart series and other things. So Christian, talk us through the difference, if you can, for a second. When we think about IndyCar racing, you think a lot about the slingshots. Does that work here, or do you want to do like a typical NASCAR draft? Which is better for the most part in these cars?
I think you can actually make the slingshots work in this car. I mean, I think it's going to be easier on a bigger track, but for sure, I felt like last night when I was in practice that if I was able to kind of tow myself up, I could make a pass at the end of a straightaway. Obviously, it depends on the downforce level as well. And that's something that I think I just have to feel like the evolved car of Fascipanti, he looked like he had more downforce on it than everybody else he was racing, because it was difficult for him to complete the pass on the leader, but when he was in the pack, it looked like he was one of the only drivers who wasn't having to lift. So I've just got to think that they've got a bit more downforce on than everybody else. And especially Sean Campbell. Sean Campbell's car looks particularly skinny in terms of wing. He's had one of the fastest cars in a straight line pretty much the whole race. So I think we're seeing a little bit of differences here. The one group that I'm really unsure on is the Apex Tech cars, and I don't know when they're planning to pit. They obviously look like they're a bit lighter than the guys who just did pit, because they've pulled almost a second on Pataska now. At one point he was about 1.8 seconds behind, and now he's 2.8. So I'm curious what their plan is.
This is what lots of fans love to see, and lots of teams like to strategize about, thinking big picture. And right now, Apex Tech has showed throughout the season they've been able to think big picture, especially on the road course side, and they've looked strong so far. Still following along with Campbell, keep in mind, the battle going on for 4th position now. It's Trevor Borowski in front. Keep in mind, the lead car in this pack is Fascipanti, who is a lap down after his incident. Keep in mind that fuel mileage could still be a major thought process, because it's worth knowing the exact amount of time you can go, Christian, on that mileage for drivers looking to think about that, and those maybe taking notes from you throughout the day.
Yeah, and this is kind of really where I was leading into my points before on strategies, and something I've been thinking about. I didn't really think it'd be a consideration, but maybe it will be, that the pace of Barrett and Schleret is really particularly fast right now. Pataska is dropping away slowly, but everybody else is dropping away much quicker. And lap times around here, that they're only about 23 seconds, 23 flat roughly in race pace. We've got drivers who are inside the top 10 who are on the edge of going a lap down, and we talked a bit about how it's basically impossible to get that lap back, and that could be an interesting play, to be just so fast that you can put most of the field a lap down in the hope that a caution will come out and kind of save your own race. But if that happens, then you've got a massive advantage.
I'm really intrigued now to see how this plays out, approaching halfway. Keep in mind, we are expecting drivers to have to pit once when it comes to this track, and make sure on fuel based on the mileage. The most amount of fuel you can put into these cars, and this is in the setup garage for reference sake, you can hear how much you have to click on up to make sure you get yourself to 34 imperial gallons into your tank. That's a lot of gas, to say the very least. And keep in mind, that's a lot more so designed for the Grand Prix side of things. On the oval side, that can be very huge, and there's a reason in some fixed series with this car on that race at ovals, you may see fuel limitations as low as 33%.
Yeah, it's just to try and make sure there's at least a pit stop. But here's an interesting one for you, JP. Just looking at my fuel mileage number, I think that if you did start the car with a full tank of gas, you could do 195 laps under green.
Oh, wow.
That's quite a bit of caution. Maybe you can do the whole race without ever having to stop.
Was that your plan for tonight?
It was not, actually. I was fully 100% transparency here. I was fully committed to pitting around about lap 90 of the race tonight. But this looks quite good.
So what I find interesting about these numbers you just put out, Christian, as we watching the first and second cars here, is there's no eagerness to pass here, right? Like Shirley is, we're passing lap cars, but what I'm saying is Shirley could be using this draft is what I'm hinting at. And if, at some point, if they swap and then Barrett falls in second and they use this draft again, maybe these numbers are more valid than some drivers were thinking. Because these guys look comfortable in what they're doing. They're not pushing. Obviously they're pushing enough to say that 3.5, 3.6 seconds ahead of Pataska. But this is a very interesting play here. I would have thought Pataska would have been more of a contender with that stop than where he is right now.
Well, this is kind of what's making me think that the Apex Tech cars aren't doing the full fuel strategy, because if Pataska filled himself to the end of the race, then he should be on comparable fuel. He'll be on different tires, presumably, but he'll be on comparable fuel to the Apex Tech cars. And he's just been slowly dropping away. Now, that's not to say that the Apex Tech cars are slow. They've had completely blistering qualifying pace that I know ourselves couldn't touch with the time that we invested in it yesterday. So they've definitely got a fast car underneath them. And if they manage to transfer that pace through into the race, then I could genuinely see that this is comparable between themselves and Pataska. Sean Campbell's a little bit of a different situation. He's looking very, very slow, I would say now, back in that 4th spot. He's losing more time than Pataska is. So I've got to think that maybe the Apex Tech cars are still going to pit. But it does look very under control right now, and Schleray looks much more comfortable now than he did at the beginning of the race.
Taking a look as the battle with the blue cars continues. This is currently Joshua Wolf, Trevor Bobrovsky in this grouping as well. You have David H. Baker, currently the meat in the sandwich, so to speak, when it comes to being lap traffic in the mix of things, 3 laps down after his black flag sequence. And that's the interesting thing as well. But the pace being showcased by the race leaders, these cars are likely getting lapped within the next 10 laps. We've already just passed halfway.
Yeah, we have passed halfway. Wow, say that 5 times fast. That's really hard, actually. And it's, Barrett and Schleray still up top here. I'm curious if I can push on our director to do something live here. In a second, can we see Barrett's face as he's passing lap traffic here? Does he look as intense or more intense than he did earlier? I'm gonna put Zach on the spot here to make that happen. But yeah, same thing.
He looks even calmer.
I would not be that calm. Christian, are you going to be that calm tonight?
I doubt it, but I also doubt that I'll be in such a commanding position in the race as these guys are right now. If they really can go to the end, then they are just so much faster than everybody else. It's actually a little bit ridiculous. And that's really impressive. I talked a little bit about their qualifying pace, but if they've translated that pace advantage into a race setup, then yeah, I honestly can't see anybody being able to beat them now.
I'm really intrigued on the positioning, though, for this camera. If you think of the rule of thirds, it just so happens one of those rule of third lines is currently right around that hatch that's to his left. I'm wondering if he's got something hidden there. If he wins, that something's going to come out of there. Either that or it's an electrical panel. Just saying, based on the positioning and the way he's set up in that camera. You never know, though, if he's got a bunch of balloons ready to pop out for his victory, if he can hold on here.
Well, if he pulls off this race victory in the way that he's dominated so far, he deserves balloons, confetti, a cake, a clown if you're into that. He deserves a full party.
Maybe they're all inside there. Who knows? But you never count your chickens before they hatch is the saying, right? You never buy 2,000 balloons, let's say, 3 birthday cakes as well, and or celebration cakes, as well as rent a clown, and then hide them in there in case you win. You never know when you may win sometimes. By the way, their pace will now get broken with the caution flag. Tom Dowling has had an issue. The first car 1 lap down. The 11 machine has spun on his own in turns 1 and 2.
And that's something I thought we'd actually see a lot more of in the race car itself, spinning off at turn 2. But until this point with Tom Dowling, everybody's been really, really well behaved in that sense.
So we're under caution, and we talked about drivers that could get loose. When it comes to Tom, and I mentioned he was on his own, he was on his own by a mile, and it just snapped, Christian.
Yeah, and this is kind of something that everybody's been fighting with, I think, where if you can kind of see it's going around in the middle of the corner, I mean, the balance is just too loose, and that's built over the course of the run. He won't have started out like that, But you know just the difficulty of kind of committing yourself to doing enough long runs to really tune that out as we see the Apex Tech cars come down to pit road.
So they come in. Dallas Pataska comes with them. Sean Campbell stays out though. So the strategy for fuel is getting in more intriguing. And guess what as well? Because of the fact that Campbell stayed out here, what can happen when it comes to some of the drivers? If you're in front of the race leader, you may get a waiver on the pace car, possibly in some circumstances, and or have the lap cars become the control cars. That traps a few drivers behind the race leader. There's going to be plenty of traffic between Campbell, now Dallas Pataska with the lighter fuel, and the Apex Tech cars.
This is going to get, what's the word you want to use? Sketchy? Scary? Dangerous? Treacherous? You want to have a word for it?
All of the above. I think they're all appropriate right now.
Gabriel Rose, Travis Henderson, Elvis Bonello, Miguel Freitas, Devin Milerwich are all in front of Sean Campbell right here, coming 90 laps to go. And because that Fascia Ponte and Thomas Cope elect to come in and pit, Ryan Walker will stay out, though, along with David H. Baker. So at least 2 cars will be buffers for Sean Campbell here, who, as we said, took a long stop during the previous caution flag. So Campbell might be good to go here, Christian, for the rest of the way.
Yeah, I've got to think that he is good to go to the end of the race. And the interesting thing now is going to be what the relative pace of Apex Tech and Dallas Pataska are versus Sean Campbell, because that last run, I've got to think that the Apex Tech cars must have been pretty close to nearly having to pit naturally, you know, under green, and that would have been a huge problem for them. Either that or they were just light on fuel versus Campbell, but it's up to this point it's been unknown as to what everybody had, when they were going to pit and so on. I've got to think that everybody is now fueled to the end, and this is where we're going to figure out exactly what everybody's got.
Yeah, real quick, I'm going to point out the genius of you two and give you guys some credit. Look at these. Here's these 4 cars here at the front of the field. These are not leaders. These are lapped cars. We talked about there being no lucky dog in this style of racing. There's 1, 2, I believe 4 cars here are going to get a pass around here. 5. Get back 5 cars. Yeah, you're right. Are going to get a possible lead lap or at least a lap back. So I think it was you, JP, who brought this up earlier. These guys are going to benefit from this long run. Now, what they're hoping for, they're the ones hoping for another quick yellow, so now they can pit and feel like they didn't lose anything out of this process.
And remember, when it comes to that lap car rule, at 10 laps to go, either for the restart or during the pace laps, the lap cars will have to start towards the tail end of the field when it comes to this rule package, as seen with several different series. But as a result of the waves, 9 cars are on the lead lap. It's Campbell, Pataska, Barrett, Shirley, and Josh Wolf now in the top 5 of the iRacing pace car dropping off. Campbell's trying a couple different restart strategies. He'll stack the box this time. Green flag is out, back underway. No stack up behind from this one. Now it's the true test. Can Pataska and company find a way to reel back in the number 26? Keep in mind, Ryan Walker, a teammate to Dallas Pataska, is right behind him. Looking good.
First lap clean. I want to point out real quick, Justin, sorry that we're still seeing, I know fun is not odd, but interesting. Barrett and Shirley are still right there in line like they have been forever.
In fact, they lost a bit of ground on the restart with some of the traffic in between. But Pataska, he's gaining ground. He's picked up now half a tenth down off of turn 4. Pataska's on the move. Pataska's on the hunt.
Yeah, now just got to see if he can actually complete this pass, because he wasn't able to earlier in the race on Sean Campbell. He was able to get to him. He was alongside him, but he just couldn't complete the pass. So now with everybody on comparable fuel loads and to some extent comparable tires, we're going to see if this is actually possible for Pataska. And the Apex Tech cars, they want to see this fight because it's going to pull them into this as well, and it's going to give them a chance to get that lead back.
Keep in mind, they still have to find a way around the lap car and Ryan Walker, who is 6 laps down after early incidents involved in. But for Pataska, Trying to find a way to get to the bottom. Can't get there quite yet. Still 2 car lengths back.
So Christian, I'm going to lean on you once again as the setup expert of the three of us. For the people, maybe for the people who are unaware, when we come to pit stops here, what changes, if any, can these drivers make that can make these cars feel different? Besides tire and fuel, can they make any pit road changes, or what could be the difference in those changes for these drivers?
I believe the only thing that you can actually change on the car under green, aside from the in-car adjustables of the ARBs, is actually air pressure. But to be honest, we weren't finding it that sensitive last night when we were doing a couple of sweeps there. So I would be really interested to know what everybody's out there on in terms of air pressures. I feel like we were a little bit higher than we were expecting to be in our car. And I mean, it looks like it's working quite well for Pataska right now, but I expect there's going to be some spread there in terms of what people are doing. You can kind of approach it a little bit like you would on a stock car, where if you need a little bit more bite and a bit more rotation, you can kind of drop the left sides down. Pataska looking to the top here. He's going to a bit more aggressively than he was earlier in the race, and this might be all he needed to get this moved on.
Can Pataska complete it? He's got the run off the corner. Yes, he does. Dallas Pataska back to the race lead. Can Campbell try and get the switch back? Remember, they went back and forth before one of the cautions earlier. Campbell trying to build it up. 165 miles per hour in entry. Can't get to the inside quite yet. Stays within the line, though. Campbell trying to build it up for turn 1. He stays tucked in. Will he show the nose? No, he doesn't. He's trying the crossover, though, off the corner. Use the banking as a ramp, but Pataska lets him have it.
And look what's happening here right behind him. I know we're watching that battle, but look, that's that gap closing every time they're making that move. Shirley and Barrett are just grinning from ear to ear, knowing that they're just closing that gap.
Pataska wanting to ride in second, it looks like, but indeed, the top 5 now are right in groupings together. Ross Banfield, tail end of the draft, keep in mind. And it seems like Pataska thinking big picture there, knowing that the run was coming from the 26, now trying to back it up, it seems.
I think he's just got too loose. I was actually kind of curious about that. When he was behind Campbell, it looked very, very good. Looked like he could still rotate, especially through 1 and 2, really, really well. But then I was curious if that was going to, go against him when he kind of got to the lead, and it definitely looked like he did. He washed up the track as though he was tight once he got the lead, but I actually think he was just too loose, and that might now be why he's sitting behind. See where we're on the exit of the corner? I don't think he's getting tight. I think he's worried about the rear end stepping out on him, and he's just having to open the steering a bit earlier than, would be the preference.
Will this work, though, to try and fix that balance, though? Because you eventually would have to think to win the race, you have to risk getting that loose factor again.
Yeah, absolutely. And, everybody's kind of getting back into this fight right now. Ross Banfield's the driver I'm really looking at. He's looking very strong again. Schleray going very, very defensive into 3. It's going to wash him up the racetrack.
They were all the way to the line in the backdrop there. Banfield really wants to go again. He showed good pace all day. Can the 777 find a way to jump up high once again? His starting position 4th. He's been as high as around that spot today.
What I want to point out and what I'm really confused by, if I'm being honest with you, though, JP, is that car behind Banfield. That's a lapped car. That's Gabriel Ruse. He's already had some, let's say, some issues today. And he is moving and wiggling and seems kind of aggressive for someone who is 3 laps down with nothing to gain here.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Staying with the race leaders here. Right now, see how Ruse plays this with Banfield looking to play high side. Shirley tries to run the bottom. Banfield for U-Dogs gets the draft from one of the Apex Tech cars to full way clear. Banfield slams the door in the nose of the 7. Into the inside for 3rd position. Banfield completes 2 passes and 2 corners.
That's an incredible move there. Ooh, that was tight.
You play off the drafted 1. You dive it past the other. Durix is into the pit lane once again. He's 13 laps down. But everyone is compressed again within 0.7 of a second for the race lead. Campbell still holding on. 71 to go this time. Banfield's going for the move again to the inside of Pataska for second. Side by side into turn one, Pataska tries to stay above the seams. Right against the yellow line this time. Banfield trying to complete the move, can't do it yet. Pataska not backing down, Derek, so far. Another squeeze from the 23.
No, neither's backing down. They're side by side for second with Sean Campbell right ahead of them. And never mind.
Caution. More trouble. It's Travis Henderson. Banfield gets the scoring loop. Two drivers get significant damage. Elvis Bonello was the other driver involved. And we're under yellow. It's worth noting that Bonello actually spun trying to avoid the first part of the incident, with Henderson going around in front of him.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. Obviously, wasn't having the best of days to begin with. He was already scored 3 laps down. But to get involved in another wreck that's, not of your own doing is one of the worst things that can really happen. You see Henderson there, and he went to the bottom because at the time it was the only thing that looked like it was open, but just... when you've got a balance that's kind of on a bit of a knife anyway, just forcing the car into a turn like that, it's pretty much inevitable that it's going to go around on you. And Henderson, it just looked like he was inherently too loose.
Wow, look at that guy. Look at those drivers who got through, though, how tight that was.
Yeah, Bonello pinballing up the track, indeed. Crazy thing is, Travis Henderson got no damage from all that. He just avoided hitting the wall. Pataska, though, he's coming into the pit lane. That is a decision from the 23 now.
A very confusing one, I've got to be honest. I mean, there is only 9 cars on the lead lap, but with the lappers not having to go to the tail end, that's not the advantage that you might think it is, to kind of have fresh tires and everything. I've got to think that that's not a necessary pit stop, and that he's just trying to get a little bit better balance for himself with probably just with air pressures. I mean, it's all he really can tweak on in the pit stop like that. But it'll be interesting to see if he can come from the back now.
And the interesting thing is it was a very late decision by Pataska as well. If I went back and looked at it, pardon me, and it's just like it was, it wasn't signaled. He didn't pull down the lane. He came about as close to that commitment cone or commitment line as you could get before he made his decision. So I don't know if he just wanted to keep it a secret or if he made a last-second decision, but I'm confused.
I'm curious how this plays out, though. We've seen how much he was struggling, though, at times. And even in the draft was up for grabs for second, Christian, before that caution flag, and lost second, in fact, at the time of the scoring loop.
Yeah, right now, right before that caution, Ross Banfield definitely looks like the strongest car on track to me. It just looked like he had a lot more confidence, especially to throw it in underneath cars. I was really surprised how he was able to do that in turn 3. Turn 1 wasn't, too surprising because people are going to be lifting and whatnot through there, but his moves into turn 3, they were really, really impressive, just because you don't really kind of think that that's going to be possible as a pass. And the other thing is he doesn't look like he's particularly slow on the straights, so either the draft is just keeping him in play with a lot of downforce, or he's just got an inherently really good balance on the car.
It's going to be intriguing how this comes about now with regards to how this could go this afternoon, the rest of the way. It's Campbell, Banfield, Barrett, Chalet, Bobrovsky, Wolf, Pataska, Freitas, Monerwich now at the top 9. Once all the drivers in the lead lap 1 to go signal. And Campbell, keep in mind, since he's been able to get himself to the front, 61 of the 134 led laps have been his direction. Barrett has led 68, Pataska 5. Big contrast amongst those drivers.
Big contrast, and a problem for Pataska here isn't just that he's in 7th. It's that with this rule for this race, he's actually basically in 11th right now because those lap cars do not have to move before this restart. I don't get it. I really don't. Unless there's something we didn't realize, or that maybe he picked up a little bit of damage, which I never saw. I'm super confused.
It's It's almost time to get back underway. Jimmy Bryan 200 action continues from Phoenix with 65 laps to go. Campbell again, going a little bit early. Green flag is back out. A better launch now for the 777. In fact, the 777 keeps it within 2/10. Campbell, when he stacked the box, has launched away to half a second. Not so much here. Here comes Banfield with the big run for the race lead. The dive. The send to the inside. Ross Banfield puts U-Dogs up front. Campbell not backing down on the outside. Side by side for the race lead. Campbell trying to keep the power down up against the wall. Banfield got the shorter distance though. Banfield fully clear now for the race lead. Here comes Barrett.
Yeah, we're riding this onboard view of Barrett here as he's going to watch these two race side by side. And yeah, from his view, I love it. You can see just how close it feels and how close it is for these guys on track. A lot of times from our TV cameras, it doesn't look that close. But I mean, you can really get super close in these cars, and it can make you really nervous.
Still side by side indeed. Banfield still leads at the stripe. Campbell still not backing down. Wants to try and keep it to the inside. Another hard charge off the corner. The 26 and the 777. Still fighting hard. Barrett again picking up more draft. All this fighting is letting Vronsky back into the fight. Vronsky +5, Wolf +3 behind this. But Campbell looking to continue to lead up front. Can't get there yet.
Yeah, Vronsky's kind of really saving TFR's day right now. They've, not had a particularly fun afternoon so far, losing a lot of cars, but he looks like he's moving himself into contention to win this race.
Especially with how this is playing out up front, it could be anyone's day. Banfield trying the high side still. Campbell continuing to get stronger and stronger down against the yellow line. Still can't get clear. Under 60 laps to go. Campbell again tries to go a later arc in the dog leg. This time leaves more space.
This is a good fight up here, side by side for the win, for the lead and possible win here. And caution again.
Caution! Campbell gets the scoring loops. Behind him, Scott Brazier again into the wall. Back under yellow after the 555. Got into the wall on his own and spun out his black and orange machine to bring us back under yellow. And just like that, the tempo again slows down on his own.
Christian, this is one of the things we talked about in the beginning of the race, how these cars can change how they feel, how you can go from super tight to super loose. Although that didn't look like a loose car. That looked like a super tight car. That car wasn't sideways at all, I don't think. It just kind of rode up to the wall.
Yeah, and that's kind of, the challenge of the car, and especially in the early laps of a run, interestingly enough, it's not uncommon for the car to start out pretty tight and end up very, very loose. So you just got to really be on top of it. And I think some cars out there just look better at that than others. Banfield is one of them. I would say Pataska, you could kind of always see a weakness off of turn 2 on the first lap of a restart. He's never looked particularly good there. Whereas drivers such as Campbell, Banfield, and to a lesser extent Barrett and Schleray, they look much, much more composed, especially on that first lap of a restart. But right now, Banfield's car looks, I would say, the standout for me. I was really impressed by how he was able to maintain. He wasn't able to complete the pass on Campbell, but we've seen from Campbell that he's got one of the cars that's pretty much the quickest in a straight line here. And I had a feeling that the way that Banfield was kind of creating his speed when he was in the pack was that he just had a bit more downforce than the cars he was running around. But that didn't seem to be the case because he was able to run side by side with clean air alongside Campbell and not lose out down the straights.
And, the biggest benefit of this caution, we weren't talking about him under green as he was pretty far back. Dallas Pataska struggled with those lapped cars on that restart. He had a very hard time. I was watching him on the second screen, and he had a very hard time getting around them. He had just cleared them right before the yellow came out. So now as this goes green again, he only have one lap car ahead of him. That's Fasapanti, who, as we've seen from earlier in this race, 30 minutes ago, maybe had a very, very strong car. So it's not going to be someone who's going to hold him up. So he's probably the biggest beneficiary of this caution, I would think.
Just about all set to get back underway next time around. Campbell, Banfield, Barrett, Cholet, Bobrovsky, the top 5 currently. Still 9 cars in the lead lap. Attrition has been huge throughout the day today. 17th on back are out of the race right now. Brazier, Bonello, Derricks, Redford, Cologne have all finished their races in the garage area. But the big question mark is going to be who still comes away with the victory. With 55 to go when the green flag flies once again. With the trends, is it going to be Nicolas Cage? Is it going to be Meeseeks? Is it going to be the points leader? Or is it going to be Theo? Could be anybody, to say the very least.
Absolutely, it could be. I feel like we've got at least 7 cars that are capable of winning this race. And one driver I'm keeping an eye on, we talked about him a little bit a second ago, Fassi Ponti. He's still 1 lap down, but we've seen how fast he is. I'm not going to count him out of racing himself back onto the lead lap here.
I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to race himself to the point of unlapping himself. Absolutely. With the pace he showcased. Especially when the frustrations of what happened last sequence. He went for the race lead. He starts right behind some of the Grizzly TFR cars for the restart. iRacing pace car dropping off yet again. Green flag back out. And that time, Campbell catching Banfield off guard. Trying to get him as he was sleeping. Fasciaponte behind him. Already letting one car go in Dallas Pataska. No big sends yet from Banfield. Remember, Banfield got that massive run on the previous restart. This time, not so much as that was close.
Yeah, he was a little loose there out of 4. It looked like to me, Justin, when he just wiggled that car a little
Well,
sideways.
here he goes.
There he goes into that corner, side by side, out of 2, still side by side. And I think Campbell's going to have it through the dog leg here. But I think Banfield's going to get it in 3 and 4.
Indeed he does. Banfield is clear. Campbell not giving up on the outside, though. Banfield snap loose, gets nearly loose to the inside wall. Campbell tries to keep it to the tire. Barrett now looking to show his nose as they file back single file. Crossover attempt for Campbell gets held off by a very loose Banfield.
Banfield's having a very hard time here, and this is as a driver, it's so frustrating. You want to go, you're in the lead, and you're like, gosh, why can't I keep hold of this car? Oh, they're spinning.
Into the wall goes Ross Banfield. Caution flag is back out. The race leader gets hooked around the front wing of the 26, and we're under yellow.
I'm going to wait to see the replay, but I think Campbell maybe dug it a little deep there. That didn't feel necessary, but let's wait and see.
Yep.
That was kind of my feeling as well. I mean, I could see how low he was trying to go, and I could see what he was trying to do, but it just felt, a little bit unnecessary. I mean, he did catch the yellow line, and we've seen that throughout the day where it just pushes you up the track when that happens. It's pretty clear that he was just trying to get underneath him coming out to the front stretch, but the 777, that's something we've seen with so many cars, except for, I would say, 2 cars when they're in the lead of the race. The only 2 cars that look stable out front, Sean Campbell and Chris Barrett. Everybody else, when they get to the point, they look really, really loose.
You can't blame the bees on that one. Around goes Ross Banfield. That gives him a meatball flag and will likely have to take the faster pair. Sean Campbell has also elected to come down to the pit lane on his own here. And from it, what it looks like, 1.4 seconds, so he had to take a faster pair as well. So Chris Barrett is the race leader yet again after the top 2 collide for the top spot in the race, coming to 50 to go now. What did we say about the field being flipped upside down a couple times already?
All I could think about was the conversation about the balloons that you made a comment. He's getting them, full of helium right now because now he's feeling better about that race win.
Don't forget though, Dallas Pataska is up to 4th now with this caution too. He is right there in the wings too. You have Shirley, who's looked quick as well, especially when working with Barrett. But Trevor Bobrovsky, we haven't talked about him all year, it seems, Christian, too much. The 10's in his best spot of the year so far to battle for a race win. He is in third spot, +7, and was looking very sporty before the caution yet again in that pack.
Yeah, we've seen some really good pace from Veverovsky throughout the years, and it's just never really kind of come together too often. But certainly here today, we talked a little bit about the TFR cars having a bad day, and I mentioned, I think it was the last yellow period that we had, that Veverovsky had kind of moved his way up into contention, but now, with essentially the elimination of two of our main contenders, he could definitely get this done.
It is possible as some of the drivers continue to play with each other. Joshua Wolf going with the back and forth gas game, but Travis Henderson you see in the background. Keep in mind, still Campbell tail end of the lead lap now as a result of that. Miguel Freitas, you've seen, also came down to pit once again. Van Erwich also still on the lead lap. Fascia Ponzi with that is still tucked one lap down. iRacing pace car lights are out once again. With under 50 to go, a lot can change still, but the 024, the pole sitter for today, is back as the Pied Piper here. Can he defend the rest of the way, Derek, is the big question in your opinion?
I really think he can. I mean, he's been dominant all day, taking the pole, obviously, but he's just been up there. Even when he's not leading, he's always in the picture. I mean, I can't think of a moment when we've not, I think he's been, fifth was his lowest spot. I think this is his to lose at this point, unless we see another move like we just saw that brought up this caution.
We'll see if that rings true here. With 48 laps to go, iRacing pace car ready to drop off once again. Barrett, Shirley, Bobrovsky, top three, back on her way. Shirley nearly clapped the wall. The 024 able to run away, though, regardless, up at the front in the clean air to start.
We've mentioned him all night. Look at us back in third. Pataska already up to third. Going to make a move here. This could be Pataska's race as well.
Now remember, this is when he's been the strongest towards the early stages of the fuel burn after either the starts or some of the restarts. Can he find a way to get back up to the front? Needs to close up 0.8 of a second to be able to have a shot. He lost a tenth that corner, though.
Yeah, it's going to come down to whether he's fixed that balance problem in clean air. And I know obviously he's running cars down, but he's far enough back where the dirty air of the cars ahead of him isn't affecting the balance too much. So unless he's now able to kind of flat-foot it through 1 and 2, it's going to be difficult for him to catch up. But the consistent thing we've seen throughout the day is that a very good following car is quite loose in the lead. So we know that Pataska has been good, kind of hovering around that second spot, which explains why he's not really led many laps. But the question is, can he actually take the lead and then maintain it as the leader with the clean air?
That's the huge question. Back-to-back purple laps for Dallas Pataska now. He is on the rear wing of Shirley. Where will Pataska go? Shirley goes inside. Pataska elects to try it from the high side. High, wide, and very handsome for second position. He's got the run without the draft. He's quicker than the leader with the draft. Pataska clear for second off of turn 2 this time.
Looking, I think, from the back of Barrett here. Look at that. Biting that lip. Getting nervous. Knows we're just about, 44 to go, 43 to go here. Getting nervous as Pataska's now going to make the move.
No, he's boxed in.
Yeah, he is boxed in by Shirley. You're right. And they're going to, this is what, if I was Barrett, I'd be happy right now. This is what he wants, is for these two guys to fight and put a little bit of a gap there. But I think Pataska's going to close it again here in 3 and 4.
Pataska's trying it again. 155 miles an hour for the crossover to his inside. For the race lead, Pataska yet again. He dives left. Pataska in turns 1 and 2, back to the point. Barrett for the crossover yet again, though. Looks to take it back. Barrett again inside, turns 3 and 4. Pataska up the track. The Apex Tech car holds on to the edge for now, but Pataska again a great run off the corner. Barrett leads the lap.
Oh, such a close margin there. Christian, I'm going to put you on the spot for a second. You talked earlier about how cars feel loose up in the clean air. Is that just because when setups are built for these cars that you don't anticipate, I mean, that sounds weird to say, but you don't anticipate leading, so you build for traffic instead?
I think with the specific car that Pataska's on, it was just a problem that we were having. That we were kind of really good when we were following. We were just struggling a bit to be out in the lead. And, you know, we kind of saw it then when he got that pass completed. You saw he just wiggled all the way through turn 2 and then just kind of had no straightaway speed after that. And now he's stuck on the outside. The good thing is the performance on the outside line for him looks very, very good. But he needs to be able to run the preferred line if he can ever complete this pass. Schleray looks like he's kind of hanging on, but just looks a little bit ragged at this point. I'm not sure he's going to be able to get up there and give Barrett any support.
Now, last time by, I believe for like the 6th time tonight, Dallas Pataska led a lap, by the way.
7th time, in fact, as Pataska still keeping up on the high side. Schleray continues to watch in the popcorn seat. Of note, you see in the backdrop, Wolf Bobrovsky as well as one of the Eric Grizzly TFR cars lined up, but it's Pataska with the scoring loop. The Grizzly TFR cars in that pack have gone around again. It's Henderson. 3 laps down in 12th spot, and this time he does pick up the damage under the caution. He was the caboose of that pack, and he spun it a 2nd time in 20 laps on his own, Derek.
Yeah, this is different. It's different than the last wreck we saw about a couple cautions ago. This one is a case, I think it's a loose car, or it's going to be aero wash. Christian, if you want to have an opinion here, but that's not a tight race car. That's not one that went up to the wall. He just lost it down there in the dog leg. Watch this here from this onboard and see what happens.
Yeah, you could kind of see it was already starting to go around a little bit on him before he cut back down underneath his teammates. And you know, once you get to a certain point of yaw, it's just gone. And that's what happened to him right there. And I think it caught him out a little bit. I think if he'd have ran in there directly behind his teammates, that probably wouldn't have happened because he wouldn't have had the clean air. But, you know, just an unfortunate deal. I think he's going to be able to continue, though, because even though he did get in the wall pretty good, it didn't actually look like he picked up too much damage from it.
Keep in mind, his teammates on the lead lap have elected to come down for pit stops, so they are rolling the strategy dice here. As a result of the time to the caution flag, with about 35 laps to go this time by. Wolf, the first of those drivers, off the lane. Some of those drivers had last pit about 55 laps ago. In regards to that decision making. Speaking of that caution trigger affecting things, Campbell is now up to 4th. Banfield is back to 5th. They are both back in the wings to try and fight for this race lead. It never ends, it seems. The perpetual treadmill of battles for spots, especially that battle for the lead, it seems, where it's almost rotated like a treadmill and passed around like one person starts jogging along, jumps off the treadmill, another car decides to jump on instead afterwards.
So, Christian, I'm going to play a game of hypothetical driver with you because you are doing this race in the American region later this evening. There are 9 cars in the lead lap here. Where in this top 9, let's put it, if you were 5th, if you were 6th, would you have pitted air for tires? Or are you like, no, I'm done with tires, the pit crew might as well go home? Or what would be your thoughts here if you were in this race right now?
I think if I had fuel to the end, I would be staying out just to gain the track position. It just looks like it's so difficult. Even with the best cars, it's so difficult to move forward through the field. You've got that higher chance of being involved in a wreck as well as you're doing it. And, you know, the laps are just ticking down. And you need the time to be able to complete moves. So I think I would definitely be looking to stay. If I've got fuel, I'm staying out at this point. I don't think I'm going to pit again. I just don't see the advantage in the tires. We haven't really seen anybody be able to do anything with it. It takes cars just too long to move through the field. And one driver that's kind of a bit surprising me is Fancy Ponte's just been really, really nice to the drivers who are kind of in this lead fight. But I think he could be in the lead fight as well if he was on the lead lap. So I kind of want to see him push a bit more to actually get to the front of the pack and get himself back in the fight, because I think he can win this race.
he keeps creeping forward every caution. It feels like he's a little closer to getting unlapped or doing it the hard way, as we call it in NASCAR. He's only got to pass 3 cars now, which, I mean, I say only, but that's a heavy task.
Yeah, and that's with the asterisks of, will the leaders be willing to fight with the driver a lap down? That's a big question, too, to consider. With 33 laps to go, Pataska in control of the field, Barrett and Chalet second and third, Campbell and Banfield fourth and fifth on the pylon. Back on her way, but Pataska running away off the jump. Already, though, Pasciaponti doing what he did last run, letting the leaders go who are battling for the race win, or at least some of them. He slams the door shut to the next car behind, and it just so happens to be Gabriel Ruse who he just shut the door on.
I don't think that was by accident.
The top 3, though, regardless, are able to break away for now. They've got nearly a full second advantage over the rest of the field.
Yeah, Sean Campbell's in 4th. He's currently about 1.1 seconds behind here, as he's going to try to run with these guys here through 3 and 4. But he's been up there in the lead at some point tonight, has Sean Campbell. We'll see if he can get back up there again.
Remember, we talked about the strategy gambles before. We've seen how aggressive the 26 is willing to get as well for the race lead. No moves quite yet for Barrett or Chalet. If anything, they've stayed stationary in regards to their distance from the back wing of Dallas Pataska. They have been able to close up that half to 3/4 car length gap, it seems, down either of the straightaways so far. Barrett still trying to figure out a way to close on up. Just staying even, Christian. The draft's helping a little bit, but not a lot.
Yeah, and Schleray is playing a great team game and has done the entire race. He's just kind of mirroring Barrett the whole way, always working with him and not, tripping each other's race up. And that's got to be a consideration for him, just team points. It would be a great day for them to even pick up a second and third here. Schleray, see, he had a little bit of a look there, and because he didn't take it, I got to think it's because his teammate. That's why he's now under threat from Campbell. And to be honest, I think Campbell's the driver to watch. I think he's got the car that can lead the pack.
Remember, Campbell got into contact, and he hits another one. He hit Chalet this time. Caution is out. And there goes that prediction. As for the second time in about 25 laps, Campbell has made contact with a fellow car in a battle for position.
This is different. And we'll wait and see the replay. This one's different, though. It's still hard to watch when he's done it before. This one is 2 cars racing side by side through a corner compared to the aggressive move before. Watch this, Justin.
Yeah, to the inside, and you see the air. He actually called it a bit of the apron, Christian.
Yeah, I got to think that he was expecting more rotation on the bottom there than he got, and when he got in behind Barrett, that's where it looks like it starts going wrong. When Barrett sweeps down, it sort of just starts this movement from Campbell where he goes up the track, and I just feel so bad for Schleray in that, because as I was saying, he's been such a team player all day. He's just been kind of working with Barrett, not getting himself involved in incidents, really not, having aggressive moves with other drivers in battle, and he was in a really, really well-deserved top 5, and it's now just been taken away from him through no fault of his own. I mean, he was giving so much space. Campbell just washed up the racetrack, and Campbell's able to continue on, and Schleray is, well, the good news is he's got that fast repair, but otherwise he's going to the tail end of the line.
There's the fast repair. There's the off and away for the number 7. That puts him back to 9th. And again brings to the question, with Pasciaponti, I understand the thought process will not want to fight the race leaders. At this point, if you're Adam, you just say, you know what? The cautions are building up. Why not? There's points on the line if he can try and build up a run. And the drivers he's been giving space to are then in turn getting into contact here.
It is one school of thought, Justin. The other school of thought he may have is he doesn't want to affect the race lead. He doesn't want to be up there. And frankly, as more of these cars are making contact and wrecking and maybe not finishing the race, he's already in the top 10. He could easily still find himself in a top 7, top 8 position while showing respect to his fellow peers. That might be more important to him because, you don't want to be that lap car who is trying to race yourself back around the hard way and ends up, destroying a leader, destroying third place. Like, those are the kind of things that people remember, and they'll race you like that in the future.
Exactly. That's actually a good point to think about, too. It's that respectability that will impact that give and take.
I want to say real quick, though, Justin, something we kind of got caught up in the battles and didn't notice. Pataska did not look as uncomfortable or as loose in the lead there as he has in the past.
It's a good point, and Christian, turning the table toward your direction on that one. What do you think he might have done there in the previous adjustments to be able to be more comfortable now at this point of the race? And it may be partly due to the track conditions getting cooler, but it's also, well, a big difference compared to what we've seen over the past hour and a half, 2 hours.
I have a feeling that in his last stop, he could have probably gone up a little bit on left side air, and that would have tightened him up some. We got quite a bit of scope in that car for air pressure. Really on all four, you can go anywhere you want with quite a bit of margin. So it's possible that he could have gone up on rights. Well, I doubt he would have gone up on rights. I think he would have just gone up on lefts, and that's probably tightened him up a bit. But if I'm honest, it just still doesn't look great. Like, I've been watching it, and I'm like, I know it's what I'm going to drive later, and I'm not super confident, really. I'm looking at Sean Campbell and thinking that what he's got going on is still the best thing out there.
The amount of wrench turning that can happen after this race on your side may get very busy, it seems. Satellite Racing, though, is still looking to pick up a victory in European action. Green flags back out, 23 laps to go. Once again, Pataska off and away. A little bit of a closer gap, though, for Barrett to him. Campbell is still on track, though. He remained on the circuit, but does have wing damage as a result of that contact that could hamper him the rest of the way. Barrett looking to try and find a way to the outside now. His closest run for the race lead in a while. Can't get there yet. Tries to cross. Nearly spun it. Trying to cross it.
Yeah, the point you made that I thought was interesting was that Campbell obviously must have some damage in that car from that contact he made, but it's not being seen so far. Look at him all over Barrett here for second place. I would have thought with him, you can see him wiggle though, so maybe it's showing, but he's performance-wise now trying to go for P2.
Campbell, despite the wing damage, still showing some decent pace here to the inside for second. Yes, indeed, move the RSR Esports machine up to the second spot. Banfield is also within this draft, keep in mind. And right behind them, Fascia Ponti, waiting to see what happens now after all the attrition buildup. But now with the damage, though, can Campbell get there is the question, Christian.
Well, the thing it looks like he's lost is it looks like he's lost that straight line speed advantage he had. Still very, very good through 1 and 2 there. You saw him pull away from Barrett, closing in on Pataska. But it does look like it might now be a little bit more difficult for him to complete those passes. I am watching Ross Banfield. I think he's going to be able to have a shot at winning this. And I can see Fascia Ponti is just kind of hanging out there in the 5th place on track, even though he is a lap down and actually scored in 10th.
Let me ask a separate question, though. With this damage we think that Campbell has, what is the harm he's doing to the drivers behind him in line with that damage? In other words, is he actually benefiting Pataska by being in P2 right now?
I think he is a little bit, but he's about to benefit them if he keeps actually, getting closer to Pataska. Might even be able to get alongside him here. And if that happens, we're going to start to see that stack up that we've seen every time we get too wide at the front of the field. But look, there he's able to get just to Pataska's left rear wheel, but not as confidently as he was before. And he's having to really, really push the car, and he won't lead the lap.
Barrett, by the way, in 3rd place, almost tagged the outside wall there.
Getting very dicey. Campbell getting loose side by side for the race lead. Nearly hits the side of Dallas Pataska trying to push him up. Barrett goes to the inside. Banfield takes a 2x2. 16 laps to go. Campbell trying to hold it on the bottom. Gets loose again. Four cars covered under a blanket here. Another send to the inside. Banfield just about clear for third.
I was going to say, guys, I think any hypothetical conversations about damage that Campbell does or doesn't have, or any damage it may or may not affect, I think that's off the board.
Campbell not backing down, though. Banfield wants to go for it. He goes to the outside. Can't stick it up there fully yet. But both cars feeding narrow wash now to Ross Banfield, grabbing that yellow line indeed. Banfield trying to pill this up, and this 777 can't get there yet. 14 to go this time from Phoenix.
Pascal looks like he's starting to get a little bit loose. That's going to check up that top line that we've now got forming. Never thought I'd say that about a Phoenix race, that we've got a top line 2x2 forming.
This is Legacy Phoenix, indeed. You don't expect that. You may expect it in the current day Phoenix. But for Pataska, the defensive line continuing a bit. For the runs off the corner, Barrett now up to third, trying to line it up behind this satellite racing car. Pataska nearly clear again. Campbell sends it again to the inside. Pataska nearly to the wall.
The amazing thing, guys, we're 13 to go, almost 12 to go. This is, I think, the closest we've had as far as a race to the lead all day long. It's getting tighter as we're getting closer to the end.
Basciaponti there as well. Keep in mind, first car 1 lap down. Will he try and get a lap back here with all this? Barrett way up the track. Inside again for Banfield. Can't get there yet for the battle for third. Campbell still trying to keep this up for the race lead. Barrett again the run. Now side by side for P2 possibly.
I'm wondering when we're going to see a 3 wide, because actually right now for Pataska, this is quite good. He's able to always lead at the stripe, as we see a car flipping right in front of them.
Oh, caution is out indeed. What a moment for the race leaders. We're back in Rio as Travis Henderson flips over in front of 2x2 for the race lead, and no one hit him.
I'm excited to see an in-car from any of those 4 guys in a moment after this replay. Watch this here. Let's get again. Oh, very tight. Out of is that going to be 3 and 4?
1 and 2, and right over top Banfield.
That is incredible. I want to see the onboard from Ross Banfield. Yeah, it looked like he just was turning in. It just snapped, and then he went straight to the fence.
Take a listen.
He did make an attempt to get around the car, but it was so high up in the air, it just didn't matter.
You still want to make sure. I've been there before. You still want to make sure just in case. But yeah, no, he made an attempt.
One more look, and yeah. Travis Henderson's been struggling with loose conditions for the past 40 laps. And this just set up a wild finish to this one. Lap cars again drop back to the end of the line, usually around this 10 lap to go mark. We'll see if that continues that trend based on the rule packages. Indeed, yes. Basciaponti already moving up to the high side in preparation for that, looks like. Regardless, though, Pataska, Campbell, Barrett, and Banfield could have a massive scrap here for this race win.
Yeah, they could. I want to bring up real quick, something we don't talk about a lot are the spotters. I don't know if you guys do much spotting within the iRacing service, but as a spotter, how do you call that, by the way? Like, you just go, oh, look out. That's all you can say, I think, right? I mean, there's not really a spotter call for, we say up high, but that's not what we mean,
Yeah.
Don't literally mean up in the air.
All I can think of is keep your foot in it. Or as our producer, Zach Johnson, would say, car in orbit in front of you. Make sure you don't join his orbit. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're 8 to go regardless on the board, this time by. And again, I don't know how this could play out here, because Pataska's having to fight hard to hold on. You have Campbell with the damage, despite that being really quick. You have Banfield coming in quick. Barrett's been trying to find a way around. Oh, and by the way, you also have potentially, depending on how the lap cars line up at the one-to-go trigger here, ready to try and make moves with Trevor Bobrovsky right behind. And Chalet, who had to take the faster pair, also in the mix. And some of them are trying to burn off some fuel to make sure they're ready to go and try and get it as light as they can. It's going to get wild, Christian, to say the very least, with this race today. Now, to end this off, and remember, no green-white checkers when it comes to today's format.
Yeah, absolutely. And the no green, white checkers is going to be a huge factor in this, because it's obviously always a benefit to be the leader. But I think when you don't have green, white checkers, it actually kind of shifts the balance towards you, because, you know, with green, white checkers, essentially a yellow coming out is always against the leader, because the leader can never benefit from that. He's always going to end up, you know, suffering another opportunity to get past. Whereas when there's no green, white checkers, if Pataska can run 2 laps, maybe 3 laps, as the leader, and then a yellow comes out, it essentially wins the race for him.
Lap cars, as mentioned, dropping to the back with under 10 laps to go on Ford. Drivers are instructed, as lap traffic by the sim, that they must go behind all the lead lap cars. So they'll be out of the way for the battle for the race win with 6 laps to go. Point of no return is about 4 to go today here at Phoenix for the Jimmy Bryan 200. Pataska, Campbell, Barrett, Banfield, Vrabowski, the top 5. Who's going to win it? 6 miles to go. iRacing pace car dropping off, this time by Pataska. Waits on the gas. He stacks it up a touch. Green flag is out. 6 to go.
What a jump by Pataska there.
An error, good jump indeed, but Campbell trying to line it up with the speed. Will there be enough time, though, to get back to side-by-side battling? 5 to go this time. He's got time. He's got the run. Campbell's got the speed. Campbell to the left side. He shows the nose to the inside for the race lead. Pataska gives him the space. Can Campbell clear for the space? No, he can't. Here it comes.
Banfield, by the way.
2 by 2 yet again. Campbell, good run along the bottom. Pataska, though, getting the run up top. 4 to go.
At that phrase I love, the point of no return. So you have to race full throttle as much as you can every lap here in anticipation. The next flag will finish it for us.
Chalet with the fastest lap of the race now in 5th position too. Bobrovsky also in the mix. Campbell tries to still find a way ahead. 3 to go this time. Banfield trying to poke a hole to make it 3 wide. It didn't fit there.
Yeah, somebody's got to try 3 wide, because these 2 at the front, they're just stacking it up. The only opportunity for anybody behind is going to be a 3 wide. It's risky, but I think you got to try it. Otherwise, I think it's advantage Pataska unless a yellow comes out, because he's getting to the stripe every single time with the tiniest of margins over Sean Campbell.
2 by 2, a couple rows deep once again. Chalet and Banfield fight for 3rd. 2 laps to go. Campbell tries to take the win away from Pataska. Barrett again with a huge run. A big checkup again on the top side. White flag waits up in the stands. If they take the white, they'll race it down to the checkered. Campbell nearly getting the lead lap. 1 to go from Phoenix.
Oh,
and there goes Pataska. Pataska into the wall. Upside down. Bryan, Chalet, and a couple others with them. It comes down to 2 cars. Campbell and Banfield. Banfield goes high. Campbell goes low. Both of them wiggle. They slide. Campbell holds on. Sean Campbell wins a wacky race at Phoenix. What can you say?
I mean, the first thing to say is that was doubtless Pataska's race to lose, and unfortunately he did with that getting loose on the outside.
Wow, oh wow, what a way for Campbell to win this. Sean Campbell has just indicated on the radio he's not burning it out yet. He's going to try and push Chris Barrett back over to help him finish the race. Problem is, 1, Barrett's already, I believe, towed, and 2, the race results will not allow him to flip over. He's ran out of time to do so. Either way, Sean Campbell has won this race at Phoenix unofficially. My goodness. And I think some people are slipping and sliding and probably thinking that same sound now after that wild end.
That was an incredible race, guys. I mean, it only got more intense and more exciting as the race went on. Let's watch this again.
Yeah, and you make the call here. This is in turn 1, the contact.
Yeah, it's just look at Pataska just gets loose into the corner there, gets it sideways, and there's nothing anyone can do behind him besides stay in the throttle. There's not enough warning time to even move when that happens. I think that's Barrett right behind him, and also Chalet behind him, and there's just nothing they could do. They were just, again they get hit. More cars joining the orbit program.
Absolutely gut punching though for some of the drivers. Barrett, the points leader, Pataska. Yeah, not much you can really say as they went up into the catch fence.
Yeah.
And then got hit by the second pack.
By his teammate, I believe.
It did look like it was his teammate, yeah. And it looked kind of like what started it off was, it looked very, very marginal as to if there is contact, but it just looked like Barrett's left front just hooks under Pataska's wing end plate, and that's what sends him around. I don't think Pataska dropped the car on his own there. I definitely think he was assisted.
We'll take a quick break. Post-race coverage coming up right after this. You're watching GSRC from iRacing's virtual Legacy Phoenix Raceway.
This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in indoor series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.
Welcome back to Phoenix Raceway for post-race coverage here on GSRC for the Major Series and its European region Pro Split for the Jimmy Bryan 200. Unofficial race results after a wild incident in Turn 1. Sean Campbell takes the checkered flag over Ross Banfield by 0.158 seconds. Trevor Bobrovsky finished in third spot tonight, with Monerwich in fourth. Joshua Wolf rounded out the top five. Freitas and Pataska rounded out the finishers at the time of the checkered flag. Chris Barrett finished one lap down after being involved in the incident, with Shirley also getting collected. Fascia Ponte, after his incident battle with the race lead, the highest he can get all night was 10th. That's where his night ends, Christian.
Yeah, absolutely. And then moving on to the back 10 of the race, Tom Dreiling, one lap down, comes home in 11th. We saw him have a couple of issues early on, but David H. Baker, the first driver, 3 laps down. Thomas Cope, Gabriel Roos, we saw him involved in a couple of incidents today. Unfortunately, finishes 14th with his satellite racing teammate Ryan Walker, 6 laps down in 15th. And really a day to forget for Travis Henderson, 14 laps back there in 16th. Scott Brazier, very, very fast in the warm-up. We expected a bit more from him. Unfortunately, early incidents put him out of the race. Similar can be said for Elvis Bernallo, Jan Drix, and Mark Redford, 153 laps down there in 20th spot, with our very last and most unfortunate driver of the day, Cordell Colon. Unfortunately, 2 incidents very, very early on in the race took him out.
That's a look top to on at the unofficial race results, and plenty of drivers are standing by wanting to talk about what just happened from their perspectives, whether for the battle for the race win or those collected in some of the attrition. The first of those drivers, second place tonight, went to Ross Banfield at the stripe. Take the chance to talk to the 777 machine. Ross, it was a wild night for you. You were in the mix for the race lead several times. Talk us through that final restart though, and what you seen going to the final corners.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty interesting because Cena had a pretty fast car, but he had wing damage from that other contact, so he just couldn't pull through. So the inside was fast, but you couldn't do anything with it. was trying to work the outside, but I couldn't find any space, and then that wreck kind of happened right at the last lap, and it worked out.
Of course, you had to take the faster at one point, and the damage from the initial damage, should say, when it came to Campbell's situation, came with contact with yourself. What was the emotional reaction like, knowing you were fighting for the lead and then you're towards the inside wall?
So I was pretty upset, but I kind of kept a level head because I knew I made it up the field in about 20 laps, and there's 50 laps to go, so I knew I could do it again. I think it might have been a bit of netcode. I hadn't checked the replay yet, so I'll double check it. But yeah, it definitely hit the inside wheel and lifted me up.
With this, though, it was a finish that you may have needed after the disaster that was Daytona a few months ago. Talk us through now your complexion heading, or your focus now heading into a wild card round with the Porsches next time out.
Yeah, this season's kind of, I guess, going to be a redemption season for the most part after that big incident. So I'm just going to try and keep it as clean as possible. It's not worth one position for all that. So yeah, just looking forward to keeping it clean, making some good sets for the team.
Who do you want to thank for the run tonight?
Definitely the UDocs crew. We definitely came together on this set. We found speed like in the later half of the week, and it was just a game changer overnight.
Congratulations again on the podium.
Thanks, guys.
Ross Banfield, second spot at the stripe after a wild finish here at Phoenix. Next driver is standing by, and there are plenty of choices to go towards. But we go to Chris Barrett. He's with Derek Watson. He was the points leader entering tonight. He was in the mix for the race lead. Instead, he finishes in 8th. Derek.
Yeah, Chris, great run tonight. You finished 8th, unfortunately, but multiple times today you led good portions of this race. Talk to us, I guess, first, the obvious question. Talk us through your point of view of the last lap. What happened there? How do you feel about it?
Well, I've got to say I'm pretty gutted. It was a really great race up to that point. Obviously, taking pole by quite a big margin was fantastic. And then Teo and I were running our own strategy, really. We always wanted to do the one stop. We knew that was going to put us at a disadvantage to the others, kind of 3 different phases of the race, but we just stuck in there. I think we showed excellent pace and were just kind of really, really cautious all the way up to the end. Yeah, really disappointed with how it ended there. I don't think it was anyone's fault. Looking at the replay, there was some pretty horrendous netcode. So, yeah, I think it was just fantastic with Dallas and Ross and Sean and Teo as well. Just say thanks to them for some great racing, and really sorry to Dallas for kind of that contact at the end, which ruined all of our races. But I think there's a lot of positives to take out of it for sure.
Yeah, a lot of positives indeed. One of them was really your car. In fact, you were one of the cars all night who you kind of felt confident in the lead or in traffic. What do you think contributes to that?
I think I've got to give all the credit to Teo Sare, who's kind of our Lotus 79 guru. He's done about 3,000 laps of practice leading up to this race, which is incredible. We've put a lot of thought into what we want in the setup. We didn't go for outright speed. We knew that it was going to be powerful to be able to be strong in the draft, but also out front. So I think it showed at the end there that we were really strong when we were leading. We're also really strong in traffic, even though we didn't have the same straight line speed as the others. So I was really pleased with the setup, felt really comfortable, really stable right to the end. And yeah, I just kind of apologize to the team for not really getting what we deserve out of the end. But at the end of the day, 8th and 9th is still some good points for the team. And especially when we're road specialists, we can't complain too much.
No, definitely not. I mean, you're going to finish P8 tonight, looks like, according to the official board. So as this major series has a bunch of different cars and track formats ahead of us, what's the one you're still looking forward to the most?
Oh, there's plenty to look forward to. I think it's a combination of the Porsche Cup. I really like that car, and also the trucks at Motorsport has got me quite excited. I drove that a few years ago, so looking forward to both of those combos. But we love the variety, and I think we've shown that I've got pole now in a road track and got pole in oval, so we can do it all.
Awesome. Well, before we let you go, anyone you want to say thank you to, hello to, anything like that?
Yeah, just thanks to the whole team, really, and really thanks to Apex Technologies US for sponsoring the team, and all our other sponsors, ProSimRig, Base Performance Simulators, Meridian Audio, TPI Cinema, Hippo Sports Management as well. So thanks, everyone, and thanks for the whole team for helping out, Jan and Hash and Teo. So thanks very much, and thanks for the broadcast.
You're very welcome. There he is. He's the driver of the 024 car in P8. That's Chris Barrett after having a strong performance tonight.
Now, it was talked about by him that Theo Chalet was a big part of the setup build for that respective group. He finished in 9th spot. To talk a bit about the performance of the number 7, as well as a bit on that philosophy, Christian Challengers with Theo.
Yeah, it looked like it was a great race for yourself and teammate Chris Barrett, but unfortunately, it kind of came apart right on the very last lap for you. But you played the team game the whole day. You and Chris were just kind of locked together the whole time. You had that incident with Sean Campbell, but you were able to recover from it, and it looked like you were still going to be able to pick up a top 5. But just a great race, but just probably not the result that you were after.
Yeah, certainly not what I was asking for. Just the car was mega in the slipstream, so I was able to slalom between the cars to catch up the leading group, and a pretty bad net code at the end killed both of us. So pretty bad ending, but I know we had the pace.
Yeah, well, Chris was talking to us a little bit about how much effort that you'd put into this race and how much time you'd spent on setup, and he was really giving you a big shout out for just how much effort you'd put in, and really throughout the course of the season. That's every time we've interviewed you guys, that's really what everybody said. You seem like you're kind of like the setup guy behind the Apex Tech team. You want to kind of tell us a little bit about that and what your sort of process is and how you go about building these great cars? Because your pole time the other night was really, really incredible. We have nothing for you. I mean, myself, Nick Ottinger, Coke Series drivers taking 3 poles. We were looking at it. We were completely head scratching. We had no idea how you'd achieved what you had.
Well, I could talk for hours about that, but basically, I just started with the majors garage setup, and then I just tweaked pretty much everything. Only the tempers are still the same from the base setup, but I just tried everything here and there. And at the moment, when we went for the quali setups on Saturday only, we found out that it was pretty easy to get fast, but only on 1 lap, so a very extreme setup.
It's definitely interesting to hear that. And next time out, we've got the Porsche Cup wildcard round. Obviously, a car with a little less setup options. You want to kind of talk us through your feelings on that? Have you got any kind of experience in the car? You think it's going to be a good round for yourself and the Apex Tech team?
Well, basically, I raced about a bit this car at my beginnings, and it just killed my rating. So I pretty much didn't touch it in that moment. But the issue with the GT cars is that they are a bit too smooth for me, a bit sluggish. So I don't feel really the car. So I will just put the laps in to get used to it. And this car is more about driver skill than technical skill, I say.
Well, I'll definitely be looking out for you next time out. As we have really all season so far, you've just been very, very strong, and it was very unfortunate to not come away with, at minimum, I think, a top 5 for yourself today. So commiserations. I felt very, very bad for you when you got kind of turned around late in the race, but it looked like a great recovery. So congratulations on the recovery. And is there anybody that you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Well, of course, to Chris to be able to pull this out, to continue to race with it. To Jan as well, showing up despite he is having a race right after that. So shout out to him, and pretty much to the whole team, because even if you drive the best car in the best setup, if you have a monkey behind the wheel, it won't give you anything. So
Well, thank you for coming and chatting with us, and hopefully the next round out, you'll be able to pick up a little bit better of a result than you have here today, especially with how much effort you put in.
Yeah, crossing the fingers.
That's Theo Chalet coming away at the end in 9th position. Also standing by 3rd place in this race was Trevor Borowski, quietly coming away with that 3rd spot after the craziness. Trevor, your perspective on the last lap as you take home one of your best runs in a while with a major series, top 3.
I mean, it's a good to get a top three. You don't like seeing it happen that way. It's really unlucky for those guys, and just really fortunate for us. And you know what happens? I feel pretty gutted for those Apex guys. They had, I think, the car to beat for a large portion of the race, and to end up finishing where they finished is pretty rough. But I mean, that happens. That's what the Grizzly guys were feeling after the Daytona 500. It's just the luck of the draw sometimes, but I guess we'll take the luck this time.
It seemed, though, throughout the day, your team's cars started off a bit on the back foot when it came to the pace side, but as the day went on, your entire contingency was starting to pick up good speed, in particular you. What was kind of the process from that, your team, as the race went on and the track started to cool a bit, to try and find that pace to keep up with everyone else to be in the mix for the race win?
I feel like we were behind the 8 ball a little bit on those top tier guys, but I think we were at the next best cars after Sean, Ross, the satellite cars, and Apex. We were a little far off, but in order to do that, we had to sacrifice some of the stability, particularly early on in the race when the track was at its hottest. And even there at the end, just can be very, very twitchy trying to get the pace out of it. We couldn't find a way to get both the speed and the stability, so some of us opted for a more risky approach, and we knew we'd have to take it cautious through the large portion of the race and just hopefully have a shot at the end. But even at the end, it's just, on that last restart, I was trying to keep up with them. You get a little wiggle in 3 and 4, and it's just like, it's not going to happen. I just can't keep up with these guys. But overall, still pretty happy. This was never going to be our strong suit. So to get the team a 3-4-5 is huge.
Indeed, and keep in mind, one of the teammates referred to when it came to the stability side, Travis Henderson, at one point flew him above the heads of the race leaders. After these 3 spin arounds in 40 laps, you could see the twitchiness from up here. But for the Porsche machines, that's up next. It's a wild card round. Your approach for that race, we go back road course racing in the Porsches.
Well, I've driven the Porsches, I think, once, and that was last year for the Major Series at Le Mans. And it was encouraging, but I think the car's changed quite a bit since then. And I'm not super familiar with Donington. I don't know if anybody on the team really is. So it might be a little bit of a struggle. That's why getting the result we did for this was so big. It's weird considering the Grizzly team's coming off a constructor's title, but really feels like we're the underdog right now. And I think it's going to feel like that for a little while. We're hoping to just try and stay close through this first half of the year and maybe pick it up a little bit in the second half when some of the rounds are more towards our style. So probably not expecting a whole lot for the Porsches.
Especially in the Porsche Cup 992, which was introduced towards the end of last year with its new car. Anyone you want to thank for the run tonight?
David Baker was probably the guy that got us as close as we could to these guys throughout the week. It was a huge shout out to him. I know he had a rough race, but these open wheel cars, he just seems to kind of come up with something to help keep us competitive. So shout out to him, and then everyone at the team. I think TFR Labs is still our sponsor right now. But and shout out to you guys going again, doing the broadcast this year. Really appreciate it.
Congratulations again on the podium today.
Thank you.
That's Trevor Borowski rounding out the top 3. I'd like to thank him, Ross Banfield, Chris Barrett, Theo Chalet, for taking the time to speak with us. Start with you, Derek. Your final thoughts on how today played out, especially with multiple different contenders, but in the end, a dramatic finish.
A dramatic finish indeed, Justin, but what a great race. Multiple race leaders, multiple passes. You know, I think sometimes when we think of these cars, we think of single file racing, and I think a comment that we made before the race was choo-choo trains, and that wasn't the case today. This was tight, for the most part, very clean racing and a lot of fun. I'm glad that I was a part of this.
Yeah, a little bit different compared to the trend seen in the past with some of the adjustments to the tires in particular. But the next race in particular is going to be wild in and of itself, the Porsche Cup wildcard round. where for the international region, it's Hungaroring. Then for the European region, Donington Park and the national layout, Road of Atlanta for the Americas. And that means essentially you won't have that potential of the data crossover that can help some of your fellow competitors split to split, Christian.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, there's not too much you can do really on the Porsche Cup car in terms of setup. So that's going to help them a little bit. But the thing with all three of those tracks is that with a standing start, if you're further down the grid, you're actually going to be halfway around a corner. So you're going to have to watch out for that. Qualifying will obviously be very, very important at that round, with the races being quite short. But that'll be an extra consideration as well for drivers who are towards the tail end of the line.
But with that, today's wild action comes to a close. We'd like to thank you for tuning in to tonight's action from iRacing's virtual Legacy Edition of Phoenix Raceway. We'd also like to thank the companies who provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed up on screen, with additional thanks to Jude Lawn, who provides her wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to today's team, including Christian, Derek, as well as Zach Johnson and Dougie Beard. You can find out more information about GSRC by going to globalsimracingchannel.com or through our social media listed on screen. Be sure to also check out the merchandise store at gsrcstoreandvy.com. We keep a link in the description down below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. As talked about with a few of the drivers, the next round is the wildcard round for the Porsche Cup cars. That will take place May the 1st. Be sure to tune in for coverage at 11:45 a.m. Eastern Time for what's expected to be an intriguing round on the road course. Also, don't forget the Major Series in its Americas region hits the racetrack later tonight at 7:45 p.m. Eastern Time. How will the Americas go? How will Christian do in that race? And how will the speed fare out for the competitors? Find out on GSRC. We have upcoming races as well for other series listed on screen, so be sure to check those out and mark them down your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.